beyond. Stay genuine, a ground floor up, I can help you find. You're a dreamer, call me when you're Bieber. And when they play it, you can't help but sing along. That's nothing odd, that's nothing wrong. 'Cause a good song never dies. It just reminds you of where you were the first time it made you cry, the first time you felt alive. No, a good song never dies. Like a lover who won't back down and pull you over to the side, look you straight into the eyes. No good songer, no good songer. The first time they made you cry, the first time you felt alive. No good songer. 'Cause a good song never dies. It just reminds you of where you were the first time it made you cry, first time you felt alive. No good song never. 'Cause a good song never dies.
Hello, good evening and welcome ladies and gentlemen to the return from the mid-season break of the Alpha Touring Challenge Season 17 as brought to you on the premier sim racing platform available only on PC, known as iRacing, powered by both Syncmesh and Glass and Steel Photography and Design. That's right, we're back from our mid-season break. Last time we left you was with round number 8 in the United Kingdom at the Thruxton circuit, but after a week's absence we are back for round number 9 of 12 and we have made our way all the way to the Asian continent for none other than the Japanese circuit, the home once of Mitsubishi to become then the home of Toyota and Lexus, the birthplace of the legendary F-Mark. It is none other than the Fuji International Speedway. Located in the foothills of Mount Fuji from which it takes its name, this circuit is an interesting contradiction. On the one hand, it consists of one of the longest start-finish straights you'll see around the world on a road racing circuit, spanning the best part of a mile, to be a bit more precise, 0.917 miles in length. However, the other end of the spectrum, you also do have a wide array of corners, whereby its hairpins and sweepers all moulded together with an average apex speed that descends dramatically as you head into the final sector, and with elevation changes very gentle at first to give way to very sharp elevation rises towards the end of the lap. Our drivers here are going to try and find the right balance between straight line speed and cornering capability. Get it right and they may just be able to come out on top. Get it wrong, however, they may find themselves falling behind, whether it be in the corners or on the straight. And with fuel saving strategy always going to be a pivotal factor as well as tyre management, you can be sure that as we return to the racing today, it is going to be an exciting round to get us back underway. Alas, where are my manners? Allow me to welcome you all to this post-round broadcast from Circuit Side as you tune in and catch up with all the racing action as if it were live. The racing you're seeing for round number 9 took place on Monday the 22nd of June 2026, i.e. yesterday, where it reaches as if it were live today, this Tuesday the 23rd of June. And as always, that means here in the content booth, we do not know what happens, whether it be in the practice session that's gradually coming to a close in the background, or the upcoming qualifying session, or most importantly, our race, and what a round we have in store. Because of course, this is our special round for the season. Each and every season, we do have a special round where the rule set is slightly different and the race is a little bit more varied, just to inject even more excitement into the mix. And for this season, we do have a special endurance race. And well, let's take you through that schedule. As we can see, our schedule, times in Eastern Daylight Time, EDT, or Universal Coordinate Time, -4, UTC -4. And after our standard 10-minute qualifying session due to get underway in approximately around about 10 minutes time. And well, after that session, where there's 2 laps available for our drivers to try and go for pole, they'll need to go all in for victory over the course of a 75-minute special endurance race set to get underway at 9:25. It is the best part of 15 minutes longer than our typical endurance races, and therefore the test of time management, driver consistency, and overall energy levels we put through the ultimate rigorous test, and who exactly will outlast the circuit come the finish line, well, that's what we're going to find out. Of course, this broadcast being brought to you in the one place you can catch all the racing action on a weekly basis from Season 17 of the Alpha Touring Challenge, and there's on youtube.com and search for Porsche Productions or PWP, and in the commentary booth you have myself. My name is Paul Walsh, uninitiated, and I shall be host and commentator throughout the whole of the season. But given the fact we've had a week's break, it's only appropriate we bring you up to speed once again with the story of the season after 8 rounds, and particularly what went down last time in Thruxton. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let's not waste any more time, and let's regale you with the tale. For as we can see, as we've made our way around the globe, last time out we're in the United Kingdom after completing our American tour. We've been to Detroit, St. Petersburg, Miami, Barber, Long Beach, Chicago, Mid-Ohio, and lastly, the Hampshire County Circuit in England of Thruxton. And what exactly went down on the 8th of June, many of you may be asking? Well, what a round we have there for our 45-minute endurance race, whereby in qualifying a grand total of 31 drivers turned up to the circuit, but only 30 would go racing. Unfortunately, there was difficulty for Micah Hendricks, a non-start in the race due to a technical issue with his Audi after qualifying, meaning only 30 raced. However, in the qualifying session itself, it was a very similar story to Mid-Ohio in round number 7, whereby the top 5 were separated by only what was a grand total of a few tenths, and the top 5 themselves were 2 tenths ahead of the rest of the field. In fact, it wasn't a few tenths to break the top 5, it was hundreds, we should correct ourselves there, and it was the top 5 of Michael Polasek, Matthew Mayer, Wojciech Swirydowicz, John Lauzon, who was your Gamma pole sitter, and Zachary Learbold, who was the second of your Gamma runners, and they were all separated by 26 hundredths in total, or 0.26 seconds. It was Michael Polasek who took pole position by a tenth, ahead of none other than Matthew Mayer, with Wojciech Swirydowicz missing out on that front row by the slenderest of margins, only a grand total of what was 16 thousandths. It was so tight, and in the end, John Lauzon just being able to pip Zachary Learbold for the Gamma pole and 4th place on that grid. But of course, we also got to see some excitement further down the field, whereby many struggled to nail their laps in qualifying, with only 2 laps available at Thruxton, like any other qualifying session, and we got to see John Daniels in the Gamma class, Zach Haddock in the Delta class, and Franz Washing in the Alpha class, all struggling qualifying to now a good lap. No valid lap set by either Ian Bertolucci nor Ferd Hour originally, and those were some big recovery drives that had to be seen to be believed in the race. And in the race, speaking of which, excluding the open lap incident between Franz Washing and Evan Clavio at turn 3, which unfortunately also collected our residential photographer for Glass of Steel Photography and Design, Jason Lynn, was a relatively incident-free race with battles rampant throughout the field. Everybody opted to use the one-stop strategy, as would be expected in the 45-minute endurance race, although there was one driver who made a bit of an error in the pit lane, and it was Matthew Mayer, who took all 4 tyres rather than just the single or 2 tyre change over a single axle, and it meant he was demoted from 2nd place and battling with Wojciech Swirydowicz for that 2nd place all the way down to 12th place overall, after which he fought his way back up to 8th place at the closing stages. However, in the end, he wasn't able to recapture the big points he was looking for. We also got to see 2 strong recovery drives from Ian Bertolucci and Ferd Rishi following their difficult qualifying performances, with Bertolucci finishing 20th overall and 13th in Gamma, but perhaps the more notable one being 21st place of Ferd Ridgely, who took 3rd in the Delta class and was not too far behind his main rival in the championship, Tyler Long, for that Delta Championship lead. And we'll show you what that has done to that Delta Championship title charge in a very short while. We also got to see a brilliant battle for 9th place in Delta, although they did go a lap down, but to be fair, they didn't care, and we absolutely loved them for it, between Thomas Fancock and Jeremy Barber, who went toe-to-toe the full distance, and in the end, it was an incredible battle. We won't spoil the outcome of it. You'll need to go back and tune into the broadcast with regards to that one, ladies and gentlemen. But we did see their battle go from 9th to 8th when Jason Lynn did retire with 2 laps to go, so. But who exactly were your winners from last time out, many of you will be asking? Well, overall, it was Michael Polasek who took pole position by a 10th, and in the end, he was able to lead every lap of the race, excluding when he came into the pits. He was untouchable over the distance, even though Wojciech Swirydowicz pushed him very hard in the opening stint. But where they were equal in pace in the opening stint, Polasek was saving the fuel needed to make sure that he had an unfathomable advantage going into the second stint, and in the end, he took the win by 10 seconds, his 59th career win. Meanwhile, in the Gamma class, it was Zachary Leopold who took his first class win of the season and the second of his career. An incredible result for Zachary Leopold, who took that 5th place overall and second in Gamma on the qualifying grid, only 34 thousandths behind John Lauzon, the pole sitter. And well, we also got to see what was a brilliant move right at the start of the race for the lead from Zachary Leopold on Lauzon, and that was on lap number 4, after which he was able to pull away with stronger race pace, really belittling what was John Lauzon's pace that was shown in qualifying. And in the end, he took his win by a grand total of 3 tenths. His pace was gradually running out towards the end, but also suspect he was nursing a little bit of fuel as Zachary Leopold bringing an absolutely brilliant win home. And in the Delta class, well, it was another win, a second class win of his season and his career for Gareth McAllister. A very impressive qualifying lap for class pole, his first in his career to take a class pole position in qualifying, and 14th overall. You had to see it and be there to be able to believe it. And he was almost 3 tenths faster than second place starter in Delta of Tyler Long. And in the race, he just proved too quick to handle Gareth McAllister. He roared away, and in the end, he enjoyed some good battles with Gamma drivers as well. But first and foremost for the Yamato Motorsport was the Delta win, and he made sure to seal it. And that brings us very nicely into this round then for Fuji International Speedway. And after today, of course, we will have 3 rounds remaining, 2 of which are endurance rounds, 1 of which is a sprint, and they'll all be taking place in Australia. We go down under, with this being our brief pit stop in Japan. We're going to Adelaide next time out, then to Phillip Island for our sprint races, and then we bring the curtain down with a 60-minute endurance finale at Mount Panorama Circuit. But you all know and love it and normally refer to it as Bathurst. But if that's the calendar and that's the story brought up to speed, well, let's tell you a little bit about host circuit for today. And of course, let's bring out the good old Alpha Touring Challenge cheat sheet. A big thank you to the Alpha Touring Challenge administration for our cheat sheets. And as we can see here, Fuji International Speedway. What do you need to know about the circuit located near the town of Oyama in the Shizuoka prefecture of Japan? Well, firstly, spanning the best part of 2.78 miles or 4.48 kilometers, depending on your preference of units. Well, this is the no chicane layout of the circuit. So what you'll notice the difference is that at Dunlop Corner at turn number 10, we do not have the switchback chicane, but instead we just typically take the sweeping bend, which is preferred by many a driver, although it's a bit of a Marmite section, if you will, of the lap. However, walking away from that a little bit, in terms of our circuit ratings, tyre stress wise, well, we do have a 4 out of 5. This circuit is very aggressive on tyre life, particularly with those high load, medium to high speed corners, such as, for example, Coca-Cola corner at turn number 3, 100R at turns 4 and 5, also the hairpin at turn number 6, which is a very interesting Dust Bowl style hairpin, and also we do have the uphill winding section for turns 11 through to 14 that culminates in Panasonic corner, where there's so much load on the tyres, it needs so many different lines you can take through there. So we expect our drivers really to manage their tyres as best as possible. Heavy braking wise, we get a rating of 1 out of 5. We only really have 2 heavy braking zones. Firstly, into turn number 1 at the end of long start finish straight, while the prime overtaking zones of the circuit, as you can see that on the circuit map with the blue highlight. And also we do have a heavy braking zone at what would be the hairpin at turn number 6. Albeit no by means as heavy, it's an earlier braking zone, it's all about trail braking there. So really there is only 1 major heavy braking zone, if you will, if you want to be a little bit pedantic, and it's all about turn number 1. But of course it is the hairpins where the overtaking opportunities will be provided. However, with regards to overtake difficulty, it is rated 4 out of 5. And you perhaps sat there thinking right now, well, if you've got 2 hairpins, why is it 4 out of 5? Well, the problem is with overtaking at Fuji, it is a circuit whereby you can have battles that run from corner to corner, and being on the inside for one corner puts you on the outside for the next. Take, for example, turn number 1. Go up the inside there, and then you'll be on the outside for Coca-Cola corner should your rival fight you around the outside. The same coming out of the turn 6 into 7 hairpin, whereby if you're on the inside, you're on the outside all the way to Dunlop corner, and there's plenty of road width here. This circuit can go 3 wide in smaller categories of cars, including TCRs, and that's what makes it such a difficult circuit to overtake at. And let's not forget, Panasonic corner at turn number 14, whereby many would say we also like to refer to it as any which way corner, given the fact there's about 6 or 7 different lines you can take through that corner. Indeed, you can go 3, 4, perhaps even 5 wide through there, and don't be surprised if we see a few very cheeky dives as the race goes on. And that start finish straight always brings cars back together. Off-track difficulty, 4 out of 5 as well. It's very easy to run wide, it's very easy to go touch the grass at this circuit. We do have some runoff areas, particularly around turns 3 through to 5, and also the hairpin at turns 6 and 7, and the run down towards turn number 10. But every time you run wide, you'll carry a lot of speed, and then we find yourself making your way with haste to the grass. Now, in terms of our pit entry, it's an easy pit entry, relatively so. It's parallel to the start finish straight, although there is a little bit of a chicane as you make your way to the pit lane for safety reasons, and the pit exit is easy as well. You exit out on the inside in towards the opening hairpin, so you've got a nice defensive line, but also you have a very prominent pit exit line which you cannot cross, and therefore drivers are held to a particular line as they come out of the pit lane. And just that you'll be noting there the fact that with regards to our race rules, we do have a slightly different rule for this endurance race, mandatory 4-tyre change. But tell you what, let's just take a pause there and we'll explain that very shortly, because when we look at our circuit diagram, well, past instance, we've seen instance everywhere around the circuit in the past. There's no notable crunch points on the circuit, but we can expect early traffic jams on laps 1, 2 and 3 at turns 1, 6 and 10 as the drivers all queue up and do battle. But this should be an exciting one and a perfect venue for our special endurance round. So therefore we come on to our rules, and what's different for this special endurance round? Well, car setup wise, nothing has changed. A driver's allowed to bring a setup of their choosing to each and every race day session. However, because this is a special endurance race, the race shall commence by a standing start. That's the same as usual, and drivers must change all 4 tyres as part of one pit stop. So let's just reiterate that. Drivers at some point in the race will come into the pit and they must change all 4 tyres on the car as part of that single pit stop. If they do need to take 2 stops of fuel, they cannot split the tyre strategy in the pit lane. So they can't change the tyres on one axle and then go and do the same on a different axle in a secondary stop. They must change all 4 tyres in a single pit stop. So it means we will see a lengthy pit stop, and that really could define the race for many drivers. You've got to time it absolutely right. So that is the rule that has changed here today. Otherwise, everything else is the same for this endurance race round, whereby each driver has 1 fast pair available. A driver shall receive a drive-through penalty if they accumulate 15 or more instant points, and should they be cheeky enough to double it to 30, they will disqualified, and all race stewarding shall be conducted post-race. But without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, we make our way back to circuit side, and as we do, let's quickly bring up speed with the championship standings. And we start off with the overall Alpha Drivers' Championship. This is the one that everybody wants to go for, the big Hall of Famer, if you will. And Wojciech Swirydowicz leads the way by 100 points over Michael Polasek and the Beaver and D's driver. Despite finishing second place to Michael Polasek last time out, he will not be taking anything for granted, because that 100-point lead, well, of course, it could be slashed quite quickly. Now, the one upper hand Wojciech Swirydowicz does have, and we can't show you it on screen here, is that keep in mind he has competed every round. He's had a very consistent set of scores at the very top. He's not yet really dropped a set of points, whereas Michael Polasek has 2 0 scores, so he's used up both of his drop scores already, committing them to zeros, and he also does have one round where he only achieved, I believe, 120 or so points. So therefore, it is advantage Wojciech Swirydowicz, right? He can afford to have a mix-up around, but understandably, Swirydowicz will want to make sure he does not give any entry point into the Yellow Flag Motorsport Drive, because with Polasek, you leave the door even slightly open, and you give him an inch, he will take the absolute mile from you. Matthew Mayer, meanwhile, the SRG Drive, this will be a bit of an emotional round for him, because this will be the last round he is definitely able to make, and I do believe the team would decide to break out his old Audi Gen 1 car in order to celebrate the fact that he's been an absolute star this season. It's unfortunate he can't make the final 3 rounds. He may be at Adelaide. He said it's a bit of a 50-50. However, if he's not able to make it, this will be the last time we see him, and he's bringing out the old Audi for a bit of fun. And good luck to the Canadian driver. Logan McKenzie sits in 4th place there. Venzel Super Touring's driver completing that top 4 and really the close portion of the leading group. With Fleet Smith, your leading Gamma driver for B4Ds. He's creeping away a little bit from John Lauzon in previous rounds, but Lauzon has brought the gap back slightly after taking the better result at Thruxton, and we'll show you how that affects the Gamma standings very shortly. But behind B4Ds and Beaver and D's drivers, we then do have Beaver and D's Ray to you, who sits in 7th place, only 19 points behind his teammate Lauzon, and in turn, the best part there of 15 points out of Crop Promotions, Chris McDonald, completing the top 3 of your Gamma drivers. Dan McFarlane and Mike Almeida complete your top 10, with the Sim Racing Grid driver having a very strong showing last time out at Thruxton, one of his best of the season so far, and we do see Damon Mitchell continue to build momentum, a lot of steam for Crop Promotions. And could we see him break himself back into the top 10 once again today? Because if so, he's definitely earned the right to be there. Zachary Bowen sits in 12th for Yellow Flag Motorsport ahead of Cooper Akers, with the Pennzoil Super Touring drive followed up by the CE Machines or Kirby Fusion Autosports, Matthew Shepka and Francois Schink. And there is going to be none other than Major Monsivais ahead of Mike Hendricks and John Daniels, whereby it's looking very tight between them, and Ian Bertolucci and Tai Long complete your top 20. The T0 Racing Ascent driver, your leading Delta driver. We'll show you how that is actually exhibited in the Delta standings very shortly. But outside the top 20, let's not forget about the fact we've got plenty more drives. Furidau originally 21st on 510 points, 5 ahead of Zachary Leopold, with Nicholas Shvedska, unfortunately not able to make this round due to work commitments, but hopefully we'll see the Shvedska racing superstar back as of Adelaide, because we definitely are going to miss him. He's a debutant for this season, and he has been absolutely brilliant thus far, and it's not quite the same. We don't have our 250 out on the grid. Zach Hodako and Gareth McAllister complete the top 25, but McAllister launching his way up into 25th after his win last time out at Thruxton in the Delta class, and a very very good set of results for him. Jason then sits in 26, just slipping behind, but ahead on Corey Lobner based on result countback. And then we do have Evan Clavio, Carl Trost, and Lewis Gilbert completing your top 30. Behind the Britain for Gator Race, it's only a single point for his teammate Mark Donnell, with Mitchell Richmeyer in 32nd. And then we do have Krista Ondra, then none other than Kurt Smith. In fact, Krista Ondera, I should say. Let's get his surname correct. And then we have Kurt Smith, Augustin Fernandez, Jacob Simmons, Jeremy Barber, Austin Dunbar, Zach Saunders, and Eli Sasak completing your top 40. And outside the top 40 to complete our overall Alpha Drivers Championship standings, we have Christian Ost, Aaron Lahr, Connor Achitella, Thomas Fancock, Spencer Clark, and also there Tyne Langenberg, Trenton Kramer, Alexander Gonzalez Green, Nick Bader, Benjamin Andrews, and Jess Rakowski completing those points to their name to 51st place, and yet score any points. JB DeJoux, Jonathan Lantin, Jalen Kuo, Michael Bowman, Joshua Bibb, Angel Minnesota, and Nathan Hempeley. But then we come to your individual class classification, starting with the Gammas, and as we can see here in the Gamma class, Fleet Smith leads the way for B4Ds, and that advantage there, standing the test of time currently by a grand total of none other than what is 71 points. However, it has been slightly reduced from what's almost 100 points as a result of Lauzon getting the upper hand at Thruxton, although neither driver was able to touch Zachary Leopold, of course. However, do not rule out Croc Promotions' Chris McDonald, who sits in a steady third place, and he has continued to try and close down the two leaders. However, should results continue to go the way they have been going, he might be slowly chipped into what is the battle to be third place. Given the fact that Dan McFarlane is very slowly approaching him, as is Mike D'Almeida, and so is Damon Mitchell. Zachary Bowman sits in 7th place ahead of Cooper Akers, with Matthew Shepka in 9th there. And we do have T0 Races, so it's Major Mods Device in that position, right off the top 10, ahead of his teammate John Daniels. It's 20 points between them, and it's a further 8 points to Ian Bertolucci for Sim Racing Grid, with Zachary Leopold's maiden Gamma win there, moving him into 13th place. Maiden for this season, of course, second of his career, and the Pensol Super Touring driver, the best part there of 19 points ahead of Shvedska Racing's Nicola Shvedska, with Connor Achitella and Alexander Gonzalez Green completing your top 16. Now, outside the Gammas, we come to the Deltas, and as we can see here, the complexion is looking increasingly tight, with Tyler Long on 561 points, a T0 Racer descent ahead of S Shark G's Fred Our Ridgely, albeit Long has slightly increased his gap, given the fact he finished ahead of Our Ridgely by 2 places overall, and a single place in the Delta class last time out, whereby it was second and third for them on the podium. But Ferd Ridgely has definitely got the bit between his teeth, and Ty Long right now is trying to make sure he does not have a late season dip. Of course, one of his big risks from season 16, of course, was his inconsistency over the course of the season, but this season he has been a bit more consistent, and Ferd Ridgely is really turning up the wick. Zach Hodako sits in 3rd place, a T0 Racer descent, teammate to Long, but right now it looks as though it's going a bit wrong for him, and the thought process will be, how soon is Gareth McAllister going to arrive on the scene for you, Mata Motorsport, given the fact he's not too far away now, only the best part there of 34 points between them. Corey Lobner sits in 5th, ahead of Jason Lynn by 4 points, the privateer ahead of the Gator Racing driver, completing the top 6. Then we do have Evan Clavio in 7th place, ahead of Carl Trost, with Mark Darnell and Lewis Gilbert completing your top 10. Mitchell Richmeyer sits in 11th for UMAT Motorsport, ahead of Kurt Smith, with Krista Ondera for Junk in the Trunk Electronicas in 13th place. We'll see him back in the near future. And then we do have round off your top 15, Jeremy Barber and Austin Dunbar, with Zach Saunders, Eli Susak, Christian Ost, Aaron Lahr and Thomas Fancock completing the Delta top 20. Outside our top 20, let's not forget about some of the other drivers, including Spencer Clark in 21st, ahead of Tyler Langenberg by 2 points. It's for 8 points there to Trenton Kramer, ahead of Nick Bader. Then we do have Benjamin Andrews and Jess Rakowski completing your top 26, all with points to their name. And yet score any points. JB DeJoux, Jonathan Lantin, Jalen Kuo, Michael Bowman, Joshua Bibb, Angel Minnesota, and Nathan Hempeley. As your team's championship standings, here we can see we are on the precipice of greatness of Beaver and D's, whereby, should results go their way in this round, they can't necessarily wrap up the championship today. However, what they can do for the overall team championship is put themselves in a position whereby at Adelaide, they will give themselves a very good chance of taking the championship crown. Rounds are running out, and so are the points. And Beaver and D's right now looking to be very much in control, and Yellow Flag Motorsport have got to very quickly get a move on. But the problem is, as they've moved up into second from 4th, with Michael Polasek returning as a Thruxton, where it's looking as though right now they're having to try and make sure they do not get overturned by the two teams behind them. Pensol Super Touring, who have moved up a place ahead of Croc Promotions, but they've lost a place to Yellow Flag Motorsports. They stay in 3rd, and Croc Promotions have really been punching above their weight this season. They've fallen to 4th, but do not count them out, because we see 2nd through to 4th separated by a grand total, if my mental mathematics is correct, of 78 points. For all those teams, 701 points away from Beaver and D. So we have a runaway leader leaders, and it's the fight for the podium spots in the Teams Championship. SRG, they really earmark the next pack of teams, whereby they're a bit of a no man's land at 1,603 points, the best part of 400 points away from the top 4, but in turn the best part of 250 or so points ahead of 6th place, which is Sim Racing Grid. Sia sit in 7th ahead of T0 Racing Summit, with B4Ds in 9th place there, continuing to hunt down T0 Racing Summit, but in turn ahead of T0 Racing Ascent, the sister team, to the 8th place team, and that's your top 10. And outside the top 10, Umata Motorsport pulled ahead of Gator Racer, trying to break away, where a sizable gap to both Problem Child Motorsport and Junker the Truck Electronicas, 5 points separated the two teams, then the battle for 13th, and yet score any points, breakfast for dinner, Penguin Mafia and Waifu no Laifu, and then coming away from Waifu no Laifu, and the end of the overall Teams Championship to the Delta standings we go. In the Delta Teams Championship, here we can see T0 Race Ascent. They are gradually extrapolating a lead, but understanding Umata Motorsport trying to keep them honest. And now they've moved into 2nd ahead of Gator Racing. Can they start to hound down T0 Race Ascent, or is time running out too soon? And do we have our favourites already marching towards the championship title? We'll have to wait and see, because Gator Racing right now, they'd like to be back up in 2nd place, and they've got a comfortable gap to SRG, who in turn are well clear of Sim Racing Grid, who are trying to hold off B4Ds. And then we do have Problem Child Motorsport and Junker the Truck Electronicas, not too far adrift for the 6th place team, and only on 18 points, T0 Racing Summit. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's a recap of the standings. We brought you up to speed with the story coming into Fuji. Without further ado, practice is complete. It's time to go qualifying. Who's going to put it on pole? Let's find out. And so, as qualifying gets underway, 10 minutes, and as quick as it'll start, it'll very quickly end as all the drivers make the way down to the isolated pit lane. Remember, of course, this is a lone qualifying format, so drivers have an isolated instance of the circuit of which they do not see any of their rivals. They have no risk of tripping up over their rivals, and they simply have the outlap plus 2 flying laps to try and put themselves as high up the starting order as possible. Now, we do have 3 new faces to the grid here today, 2 of which you sadly will not be seeing, and that's because they've decided only to take part in practice today, but we hope to see them on the grid for some of the remaining rounds of the season, and that is none other than Taylor Bookout, who many of you may know from middle of the pack Racing League fame, racing in the GTE League for 2026, and doing quite commendably well, to be fair to him. And we look forward to when Taylor is able to bring his car out onto the circuit, although unfortunately we won't be seeing him in this qualifying or race session today. And we also do give a warm welcome as well to another full-on ATC debutant in the form of John Agudello, who will be in the number 48, the privateer, both of them in the Delta class when they do join the grid for racing conditions, but indeed both of them in Hondas and not taking part in qualifying or the race, deciding instead just to appear in practice and get up a little bit of experience. But indeed, it's always good to see some fresh faces, and we wish them all the best in their preparations when they do decide to join the grid for the full race distance. We also do have another newcomer who is going to show his car in qualifying and the race day, I do believe, and he's in his Audi Gen 2 LMS RS3. It is none other than Colton Hopsecker, who makes his way around there for the privateer number 92 outfit, and we wish him all the best luck on his debut. Joining the Delta class, and well, from the practice times we've seen he has put himself right in the middle of the field, so towards the front end of the Delta class. He could be a bit of a spanner in the works for your main championship contenders, are Tyler Long and Ferd originally. Not that Colton, to be fair, is going to go out there to cause inconvenience, but it's always good when you get a bit of fresh blood on the grid, and it's always up towards the front of a class that's already got all its pecking order established. Because what it means for drivers, understandably, is that all be sat there thinking to themselves, okay, so what does this mean now for us? We've got an unknown variable in the equation, and we're going to have to find a way to make sure he does not get in our way. But for Colton Hopsecker, he's here with an open book and looking to have some fun and establish himself out there, and that's exactly what he'll try to do. As all our drivers heading around, we have no penalties for any of our drivers today, so everyone's allowed to qualify of their own volition. They're all allowed to put together their best possible laps. Nobody has a grid penalty, nobody has a qualifying ban, and therefore everyone will be coming out in full force here at the Fuji International Speedway, which will be absolutely epic. Of course, this circuit has been at the centre of plenty multimedia and culture over the years, whether, of course, it be with regards to the development program for Lexus and Toyota, this being the birthplace, of course, of the infamous Lexus RCF GT3, which is soon to be retired and replaced by the Toyota GR Concept GT3. This circuit also being right at the core. Many of you, if you're big anime fans, and of course anime originated from Japan, if you do know of the Formula 4 dedicated anime of Overtake, well, this circuit being dedicated to that anime and a big celebration of Formula 4, and really aimed at getting people, particularly in Japanese culture, but also around the world, into Formula 4. And indeed, if you've never checked out an anime, I definitely recommend it. Some may say it's a bit cheesy, but it's a great explainer of Formula 4, rules, regulations, how you race a Formula 4 car, and also a very good introduction to anime. And a big thank you to, I do believe it was Matt Shepka in the AlphaTauri Challenge Discord for recommending it to me. I did finally check it out. But aside from that, putting anime waifus and whatnot all aside, well, who exactly right now is going to be flying high here today and perhaps not needing to make an overtake? Well, Michael Polasek right now makes his way out of the final quarter to come to the end of his first flying lap, and well, he's the man who definitely right now has got the pace out there. How understandably, he's also got to try and improve and stay one step ahead of everyone, because every circuit's a bit different, all the body characteristics of the circuit, as Fleet Smith sets the initial barometer of a 43.532. Michael Polasek goes third. So Fleet Smith right now decides to go straight on, and well, I think he feels as though he's got it done in a single lap. If so, well, that is a statement there from Fleet Smith. As meanwhile, Tyler Long comes on down, and well, he decides he doesn't want to go any further as well. So a lot of drivers here deciding one lap is enough. Jason Lin makes his way down the start for this straight, unless they've only all got a lap here, but we do believe they've got two available to them. As Wojciech Swirydowicz goes provisional second place, but he's going to give it one more go, and we're going to jump aboard with him for his second and final flying lap. It's coming all the way down in towards the open hairpin, breaking all the way down to first gear, and as he muscles the car through the corner, his Honda Civic Type R, he now heads up towards turn number 3 at Coca-Cola Bend. Now bringing his way over to the right side. In fact, backs off there, Swirydowicz, so he's not happy. Well, we might be getting one and done for most of our drivers here. Micah Hendricks, well, he's back with a bang as he makes his way on down. They've finally got that Audi working, and he's going to give it another go. Let's see what he can do then on his second flying lap. He is currently half a tenth off of Fleet Smith's pole time, and Fleet Smith here might be taking the overall and the Gamma pole with it, and we haven't seen that this season so far, whereby a non-alpha driver has made it to the very top of the qualified order. But here comes Hendricks then into Coca-Cola Bend, the off-camber downhill left-hander, where it looks flat until you get to the apex. Lovely line there through Hendricks, and now coming through 100R, coming through turns 4 and 5, as he does so, connects the dots together. You want to go a little bit deep out of 4, but keep it nice and tight initially into 5, so we can get all the way to the right-hand side for hairpin at turn number 6, and you'll notice here, downhill braking zone as he clears the turn 6 apex, now through the kink of 7, and the thought process here is you want to carry momentum rather than be sharp on the brakes. So about trail braking through turn number 6, as Hendricks makes his way through 300R and down towards the Dunlop curve. He'll use the Dunlop bridge there, or the billboard, as a bit of a brake reference marker, tapping the brakes, dropping down to third gear, and now heading up towards turn number 11. Here into the right hander he goes, completely blind over the summit of the apex here. You really have to commit to the corner and then just hope you've got your line right and your throttle input correct as he comes up through the very tenacious Nets bend. Brake on straight away from the corner to open up turn 13 as he comes over the blind rise, now into Panasonic Bend, a corner you cannot see. You have to brake for it there as we do lose Hendricks, and well, he comes back there. We just lost the feed from the car, and as he makes his way out of the corner for Micah Hendricks, we're heading down towards the finish line, and it's been a decent lap for him. Is it going to be enough for pole position? He has gone purple in the middle sector. He heads along, and I think that's coming into the pit lane. In fact, it is. So Hendricks, he's not happy with the final part of the lap, and as a result, I suspect he is going to give in, and he does, and it means that unless Logan McKenzie can find some magic, although McKenzie is going quite slowly, I think that's going to be it, ladies and gentlemen. Nobody else is putting a lap together, and it is Fleet Smith who takes overall pole position. I believe that is his maiden overall pole position in his AlphaTauri Challenge career in a qualifying session, and well done to the Gamma driver for that. That is an incredible performance, and well, he has made that happen. Fleet Smith is the man on top here today at Fuji International Speedway, and well, whilst we've got 3.5 minutes or so, this qualifying session just peters out to 0. Well, let's tell you a little bit about the order then. So Fleet Smith has taken the overall pole position in Gamma pole. He'll be joined on the front row by Micah Hendricks, who was only half a tenth behind. It all went wrong from what we're hearing on our ear in the final sector. When we did lose the video feed of the car, he had gone a little bit deep into Panasonic corner, and it compromised his line, and that's why he decided to come into the pit lane. He had lost too much time. Whilst you can go deep into Panasonic corner to gain straight line speed, it does cost you at the end of lap in doing so. It's more of what is a setup line for the next lap or for an overtake into turn 1 in race conditions. Wojciech Swirydowicz will start third ahead of Matthew Shepka, who puts himself to fourth place, his highest qualifying points of the season, second of the Gammas, and Michael Polasek in the number 1. Only able to achieve 5th place here today, but we suspect that Michael Polasek will be looking more towards the race rather than rowing about a single qualifying lap. Logan McKenzie joins on that 3rd row. Then you've got to go all the way down to 11th place there, and how about that for Colton Hopsecker taking pole position there in the Delta class on his debut. We are just double checking to make sure we have got the class assignment right, because we have had a habit in the past of getting the class assignment slightly wrong. We do believe we're absolutely spot on with regards to the fact he is in the Delta class. Bear with us a brief moment, ladies and gentlemen, but we do do believe Colton Hopsecker, that does stand. Indeed, he is a Delta driver. We have just double, triple checked it to make sure that we have not got our overlay correct. And Colton Hopsecker on Delta pole position on his debut by a grand total of what was 1.3 attempts ahead of Tyler Long and Jason Lynn. Well, Jason Lynn coming back with a very ferocious qualifying lap there for third in Delta and 13th overall. So well done to him. And then we do have to look a bit further back. Thurdow Ridgey, 16th place. That's 4th in Delta. Would he be upset about that? Quite possibly. Now, to be fair, it takes a lot to ruffle the feathers of Thurdow Ridgey, but the 119 driver will be looking on the timings and seeing that right now, there's a new guy on top in Delta. That's not exactly a problem because that impacts everybody in Delta. Although, to be fair, when you are the chaser in the championship, you do not want somebody stealing away points from you if you can help it, particularly when it's a newcomer. However, what he will be concerned about is the fact that versus Tyler Long, he was the best part of a 10th down. Now, a 10th can be found here very quickly, to be fair, and a lot of drivers decide only to do one lap rather than two, and I think that explains the story, really. They felt as though they'd get the best out of a single lap with the amount of heat being put into the tyres. But Thurdow Ridgey's got some work to do, but also looking a bit further down. Now, understandably, Matthew Mayer, they're starting 17th. That's the Gen 1 Audi. What we believe is that Gen 1 Audi, unfortunately, because of the gear ratios of the car, have been kept as they were prior to the TCR overhaul update in the 2026 Season 2 iRacing update. It means that Matthew Mayer's Audi is actually hitting the limiter in 6th gear about 2/3 of the way down the start for this straight, and therefore he's losing time because he cannot go any quicker. So I wouldn't be surprised if we potentially see some drivers help him along by giving him a good push down the start finish straight in the race. Franz Oschink joins him just behind there, 18th place. Another difficult qualifying session for the Honda driver. Qualifying is not his forte in this second half of the season. Gavin McAllister in 19th there, which got to pull out a bit of magic if he wants to try and make it a third win of the season, starting there in 5th place in Delta. And towards the back, John Daniels 23rd, Lewis Gilbert 24th, and no lap set by Zachary Bowman. Well, that is a shock to the system. But, ladies and gentlemen, qualifying is complete, and well, now it's time to make our way to the grid for our one and only race. It's time for our special endurance race at Fuji. Who will be our winner after 75 minutes? And as all the drivers make the way to the grid, this is the lineup for the 75-minute special endurance round here at the Mount Fuji Circuit, Fuji International Speedway. It's round 9 of 12 in Season 17 of the Alpha Touring Challenge, powered by Syncmesh and Glass Steel Photography Design, and powering its way to pole. It is a maiden overall pole position for Fleet Smith for B4Ds. The Gamma driver, they're absolutely excelling in qualifying, taking pole by a grand total of half a tenth over Micah Hendricks of Crop Promotions. On the second row, Wojciech Swirydowicz, the championship leader in the overall Alpha Drivers Championship for B4Ds. Well, he's done the pull spot, out-qualified his main rival, Michael Polasek, and between the two of them, Matthew Shepka for Sia, who takes his season best qualifying performance of 4th place overall, second in Gamma. Mine then is Michael Polasek for Yellow Flag Motorsport in the number 1. Do not expect him to sit there for too long. His door number is number 1. He's the most decorated driver in terms of wins, not championship titles. Should he take the crown at the end of this season, he will be matching Logan McKenzie for championship crowns. I do believe a grand total in 6, and Michael Polasek right now will be looking to make sure he's number 1 at the finish line. Logan McKenzie sitting alongside him then, starting in 6th place of Pennzoil Super Touring. A very strategic driver. This race should be really in his forte. Then we do have Cooper Akers, his teammate, right behind us, 7th, 3rd of your Gammas for Pennzoil Super Touring, ahead of T0 Racing Summits, Major Mod Service. And then we do have completing your top 10, none other than Chris McDonald for Crop Promotions and Pennzoil Super Touring, Zachary Leopold. Can he find some magic today to make it another win? We'll have to wait and see. Starting outside of the top 10, on his debut, a brilliant Delta pole lap there for Colton Hopsecker, the American driver, the privateer in the end, a grand total just over a 10th ahead of championship leader in the Delta class, the Tyler Long for T0 Racing Ascent. Jason Lynn begins this one 13th for Gator Racing ahead of Yellow Flag Motorsports, Mike D'Almeida, and for the Canadian, and then be Ray Tew for B4Ds, only a grand total of 17 thousandths behind, starting 15th place. Thurdow Ridgey for S-Shot-G's got some work to do from 16th for the field, but understandably, he'll feel as though he can make this work with Matthew Mayer in the Gen 1 Audi, in, well, is perhaps his final round of the season. Well, he's going to be starting 17th place, but expected to try and come forward as quickly as he can. Seniors Franz Oschink joins him on that 9th row with Gareth McAllister for Yumata Motorsport and Zach Hidalgo for T0 Racing Ascent, completing the top 20. And outside that top 20, starting in 21st place, it is going to be Mark Darnell for Gator Racing with his good rival Carl Trost for T0 Racing Ascent. And then we'd have John Daniels for T0 Racing Summit, struggling in qualified, starting 23rd today, head of Lewis Gilbert from the UK for Gator Racing. And not setting any laps, Zachary Bowman has made his way to the grid. He'll start in 25th place for Yellow Flag Motorsport, and then not making the way to the grid, albeit making a debut in practice, none other than John Agudelo and also Taylor Bookout and Jeremy Barber of UMATA Motorsport. We believe the 167 Honda has actually had a few technical issues come up in the car, and therefore it's not going to make its way out, which is unfortunate. We only have one UMATA Motorsport car out there. It's now Gareth McAllister, but he's going to be one of the batters today when it comes to the team scoring points. But ladies and gents, without further ado, the grid is set. We're all ready to go. It is time for the lights. 5 red lights here at Fuji. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And it's lights out, away we go for round number 9 of the championship. 75 minutes of racing gets underway as quick as that. And as they charge away down towards turn 1, it's a good start from Fleet Smith. Covering off Mike Hendricks immediately as Wojciech Swirydowicz looking to the outside. And as they come into the hairpin, it's going to be tight as we look to the blimp camera. An overshot here as they all make the way through. A couple of small lockups, a few tyres being bumped around, but nothing too major as all drives head onwards. 3 wide there as they roar the way now towards Coca-Cola Bend. But will it be fizz, pop or bang for one of our drivers? Well, I had to wait and see as Michael Polasek, he's been elbowed down the order a little bit here versus Michael Hendricks and Matthew Shepka. Shepka's actually gained some ground. Polasek held 5th place, but here comes Logan McKenzie. Look up the inside of him as they come right up through 100R, but McKenzie on that tight line is not going to be able to quite find the line he needs. Meanwhile, look at that. Look who's with Tyler Long. That's Ferdinand Ritchie. We said don't count him out. And Ferdinand Ritchie immediately on the back there of Tyler Long as the SRG driver goes on the offensive here. He's had an absolute lightning start. He's had his Weetabix for breakfast as they make their way down towards turn 10 right now, where it's going to be single file formation here as they come in towards the Dunlop sweeper. Nobody wants to go too wide for the first time of asking, surely. Although Matthew Mayer's got a trick up his sleeve, surely. The Gen 1 Audi driver's going to look for him versus the Gen 2 cars. He's going to feel as though here it's the kids who are out of touch, not him. But as he comes up towards turn number 11, well, right now he's almost in touch that position. And does he go for it? Yes, he does. And does he get 13th place? He will initially before they get to next bend. But here comes our Ritchie backing him as they roll the way out the hill. Can he get it done? He's going to see what he can do on the break, and he will do so. And here comes Francois Schenk around the outside. And right now it's going to be Sia versus SRG, and the Sia drivers definitely saying goodbye there to Ferdinand Ridgely as he gets up the inside. Lovely move from Mayer, and the same for Schenk as they go on to another lap. But as they make the way down the start-finish straight then, where it's Fleet Smith who leads. He roars his way past our camera, so much so our cameraman's having difficulty keeping up. But Smith leads ahead of Wojciech Swirydowicz, followed by Matthew Shepka. The Gamma drives really coming out in force at the front of the field. Mike Hendricks sits in 4th place ahead of Michael Polasek, followed by Logan McKenzie. But then there's excitement here. Major Monster Ice versus Cooper Akers. They come down in towards turn 1 once again. It's going to be Akers on the inside for Bensol Super Touring. Late on the brakes. It's what the Honda can do. Gets his elbows out there versus the 58. And I get the feeling right now that livery is in tribute to Daytona USA, if anybody remembers the arcade machine, or that's the vision I'm getting off the car, although I may be wrong about that. It just looks very similar to the Sega arcade cabinet. But as they make the way towards turn number 3, right now Monsvai here definitely feeling a bit of pressure because Chris McDonald's right with him. And right now the number 85 driver, after a slow start, has got himself back up to 9th place, with Zachary Leopold following through. Ray Tiu has gone from 15th to 11th, but hold the phone on that. We've got to change position. Hendricks and Shepka swapped around going into the turn 6 hairpin, and well, it looks like the crop quotient drive, they're making a smooth move, and Shepka not fight it too hard, wanting to prioritise what is time and space rather than anything else. But here they come down towards the hairpin once again, and as they do, further back, well, your leader in Delta, we didn't quite see this change, Ferdinand Ridgely has got ahead of Tyler Long. We'll get a replay of that when we can. We believe that Tyler Long's had a bit of an off track, and that's aided our Ridgely in his adventure. Well, he's now up into the leader Delta class. Can he run away with it? Because Tyler Long is 4/10 behind, and then there's Mike Almeida, who breaks up the run of the Deltas because Colton Hopsek, the pole sitter, and slip back into 3rd in the Delta class, or be in 17th place right now. You'll find that Cole Trost is there, and Cole Trost once again, if only he could get on top of his qualifying difficulties. Cole Trost right now, he's had a lightning start. 4 places gained in Delta overall. He's made his way all the way up to 4th place in Delta. He could be on course for a podium here, and could even chase down the win. We'll have to wait and see. We know that strategy has been one of his strengths and his weaknesses. Indeed, many of you may remember, of course, his free stop at Sebring last season when everyone else was on the 2-stop. He had so much pace at Sebring, but in the end, the free stop completely undermined all the pace he had. We had to make that extra pit stop, and he lost out by the best part of 15 seconds in the pursuit of the win. But as he makes his way on down, well, meanwhile, at the rear of the picture, you can see well, Zachary Bowman battling here with Zach Hidako, the battle of the 2 Zachs across 2 different classes. And here comes the Gamma Dry looking for a move up the inside of the Delta. But will it be Delta Zach or Gamma Zach who is going to prove themselves to be an absolute lead? Oh, goodness me, missing the braking zone. And Zachary Bowman goes straight on there, gets slightly pranked by the car of Jason Lynn. But thankfully, it's not all tears for them. But suddenly, Jason Lynn and Zach Hidako battling side by side here. And I get the feeling right now, Hidako's going to try and sweep around the outside, but Lynn's not going to back off, although he has got intermittent connectivity in the Japan-inspired livery machine and the Audi, and unfortunately it does catch Hidako out a little bit coming through Coca-Cola Bend, and he makes sure to go wide there to avoid any major upset. But meanwhile, Chris McDonald finds himself in the fight with Cooper Akers at Major Mod Survive. And these three having a good old ding-dong battle. And, of course, Chris having that nightmare day at what was Chicago a few weeks ago, whereby the red mist really came out. But he's cooled down after that. And as he makes way on through right now, he's right into the thick of the fight here. This is where Chris loves to be. Although he doesn't love to be on the outside. They're losing 2 places trying to take. But here he goes at the switchback. And Chris McDonald right now up the inside of Major Monsivice. It's going to be a smooth move here. He goes in versus the Elantra drive. And he gets boxed in by Cooper Akers slightly on the apex. Akers there just taking his time through the corner. And it gets a little bit elbows out there as Major Monsivice. No management. As that's going to be Leopold going sideways. He gets it back together using the throttle pedal there to straighten the car out. And well, the Honda driver definitely not feeling like Shingo right now, and pick up some Shingo points along the way. For those who know, we're friends to Initial D there, and to keep the anime references coming, I will every so often. But as he makes his way out right now, that's no EG6, that's an FK8. And right now the FK8's got to get it straight as he makes his way onto another lap. But as he powers his way down, Carl Trost and Mark Darnell right behind here as they go. And well, Carl Trost here looking for an opportunity as he powers his way onwards. And as he goes down, we look on board here, and whilst this Elantra does have a lot of straight line speed versus the Honda, when you have got the draft of a car in front for Zachary Leopold's Honda, that's going to help him. That's Colton Hopsecker keeping him alive in this battle as Carl tries to tuck back into the line. But as he comes onto the brakes here, well, it's been absolutely entertaining 5 minutes, and that's going to see Leopold go very deep, collect Colton Hopsecker, and that's going to see Carl Trost take 2 places at the price of 1 driver's error. Smart driving there for Carl Trost. A bit unfortunate, but Zachary Leopold with the overdraft there, or the overspeed, just being caught out by no malice meant. They're just simply going to break at its normal spot, and then suddenly realised a bit too late. Hold up as I'm carrying about 4 miles an hour more than I normally would. The brakes are not going to do it. But as they come through turns 4 and 5, well, here comes Mark Darnell. A special livery on the car as well for him. And well, as he makes one through there, similar livery to Jason, of course, the 2 of them teammates, and well, the Japanese livery's out in full force. But well, as they come through right now, things do calm down for a little bit perhaps. Although saying that, looking at the front of the field, I don't think anything's coming down anytime soon. Fleet Smith right now, well, there as he makes way through, and well, the livery dedicated there to Mount Fuji, I do believe on the side of the car. Lovely livery, it must be said there. If he doesn't win the race, he wins hearts, no doubt about it. He wins my heart for that livery. And well, Wojciech Swirydowicz and Michael Hendricks following up closely. The 2 Alphas chasing down the Gamma. But remember, when you're a Gamma driver, the #1 place you want to go is to the Alphas, and to do so, you need to win the Gamma Championship. And the Gamma Championship introduced as of our 5-year anniversary season 16. Ray becoming the first ever Gamma champion, and that's why he's now an Alpha. And right now, Fleet Smith definitely seeing if he can be the Alpha on the racetrack today, trying to prove them all that he deserves to be there come the end of the season. But further back, it's a big scramble between drivers here as they all power their way down. It's outside the top 10, outside the top 15, but either way, we're taking a look at it. But it's Zachary Leopold right now, feeding the pressure of Mark Darnell, Carl Trost, Jason Lynn and Zach Hidaka as they all sprint their way down. And the T0 racing drive right now, he's going to go round the outside of Carl Trost. He's going quite slowly. I think Trost to pick up a slowdown for track limit, and therefore he's having to burn that down the start for the straight. A painful slowdown as Zach Hidaka goes all on the inside versus Jason Lynn. And a smooth move there made by Zach Hidako. Jason Lynn wasn't going to fight that too hard on the outside, given the fact he'd just be understeering wide otherwise and putting more pressure on the tyres. Zach Hidako takes that place. Meanwhile, back up into the top 10, Cooper Akers and Chris McDonald together. Major Monsivice still with them as they head up the rise. In towards the hairpin, and here comes McDonald to the inside. The Croc Promotion driver goes for it. And, well, Cooper Akers squeeze him to the apex as much as possible. But see, Major Monsivice now looking for an opportunity here to make it 3 wide. But immediately, Chris McDonald goes, no, Major, I don't want you getting involved in this. And Major goes, okay, I'll just go around the outside of both of you then. And right now, Chris McDonald had to pick who to fight with here. This is hard going for all 3 of them. But it's brilliant racing action. Goes around the outside, and Chris McDonald holds on. Here comes Monsivice looking up the inside versus Akers. He's going to go for it here towards turn number 12. And if we can just have this race go on all the way through, ladies and gentlemen, I don't know what's going to break first. One of these drivers will cast their tyres on my voice. But here comes Matthew Bayer. Looks up the inside, and the Gen 1 out. He's going to try and school the ball as he goes up the inside. Lovely line there for Bayer. And he makes his way up into 9th place. And now behind, you can see there, that's Ray Tew and Francois Schink getting ready. And keep in mind, of course, that Francois Schink started 18th place. He's up to 11th. Ray Tew lets it go slightly, and I think right now both of them want to get more involved in the battle in front of them. But the B4D's driver, Ray Tew, gets a better exit out of Panasonic corner, and well, that may help out to a degree as they head down towards turn number 1. As they get ready to go onto the brakes once again. Well, right now, Tia and Schink are going to be side by side here, but Ray Tew does have the draft of Monsivice's car, although Major Monsivice does seem to be spreading the toe between the 2 drivers. That's going to help him out in terms of getting them to fight rather than him having to worry about both of them. But Francois Schink says, well, just go the whole 9 yards under braking then, if you're going to be trying to share the toe. And, well, Schink does get ahead there just about. Lovely lunge under braking. And Francois Schink now up into 11th place overall. But we've had a change of leader. Wojciech Swirydowicz has found his way past Fleet Smith. We believe that has just happened at turn number 3, and Micah Hendricks is now looking for a move here in towards turn number 6, and Hendricks goes up the inside. And remember, for Fleet Smith, he doesn't need to win overall in order to gain points on his rivals. He just needs to be the highest placed Gamma driver, but points are always scored first and foremost overall. So ideally, you do want to finish as high as possible overall. You do want to win the race, whether you're a Gamma or a Delta driver. You want to win overall because all the points will be available there. But then if you are of those classes, you pick up bonus points for your podium position. 8 for first, 4 for second, and 2 for third in the case of an endurance race round. So that's why for Fleet Smith, winning in the Gamma class can be just as valuable as winning overall, in the fact that right now, when you do consider that John Lauzon not on the grid here today, well, therefore he can gain a lot of ground. But there are drop scores to be considered, so this is an open checkbook situation for Fleet Smith, and he has to capitalise on it. He needs to cash this check as quickly as he can, because otherwise if he does not, then he may find himself losing out later on in the season. But as they power the way down towards what will be turn 1 once again. Well, right now, Hendricks and Smith definitely getting their elbows out between each other, and it's going to get a little bit feisty between them as they make the way towards that braking zone. But who's going to back out here of the two of them? Well, Smith definitely on the inside. He's got the better line. He's got the greater straight line speed as well. Hendricks, meanwhile, doesn't seem to have quite the straight line speed, but it's better in the corners in identical machinery, because it does come down to the setup of the car and the driver's ability, plus also any fuel saving that's being done. But Fleet Smith right now definitely get his elbows out there to make sure he does not lose second place. But ladies and gentlemen, before we lose ourselves in any more epic battling, we need to take a trip back in time to take a look at some of the big moments in this race. And well, we are going to start, of course, with our race start. Now, these replays, of course, courtesy of Arturo Mayorga, with his brilliant software enabling us to bring you these replays as they were live. And as our drivers got underway, well, it was a good start from Fleet Smith, no doubt about it, nailing that launch off the line. And as they made the way down towards turn 1, immediately covered off the inside. The whole field got underway. A bit of a slow start there for Gareth McAllister. In fact, McAllister stalled it off the line right at the back of the field. I've only just noticed that. Oh, and hold up a second. Somebody came in like a bit of a razor-hot missile. That was Michael Polasek on the inside. So Polasek again is slightly wrong under launching towards turn number 1, but thankfully everyone able to take a void in action, and Polasek hooking himself onto the apex curb. That could have been very nasty if not so for the yellow flag motorsport driver, indeed everybody around. But that explains why Polasek lost ground as well as gained it. But then all the field then segued its way through and was safely around. But we then did have a bit of change, because we had Tyler Long losing out on lap number 2. As that was a very sideways car of, I think, Jason Lim. But this was going on to lap 2. Tylon went his way in towards the opening bend, tapped to the rear there of Ray Tu's car, and that is what saw him run a bit wide and enabled for Ferdinand Ricci to have the confidence to go for a move in towards Coca-Cola Bend. However, for the Delta lead, it was not that easy for Ridgely, and he had to scoop his way around the outside, and Long in the end decided not to fight it, but backed off it instead, realising the fact that it was going to be a bit of a difficult situation to go too wide through there. But then how did the overall lead change, I hear you ask? And this was Wojciech Swirydowicz finding his way past Fleet Smith, going on to lap 6. It was a drag race down towards turn number 1, and Smith had been holding him off for some time, but in the inevitable seemed to be that there was going to be a Honda up his inside, albeit you could see there Micah Hendricks said, "Oh, okay, Fleet, if you're going to let Wojciech go, then let me go, please." At which point Fleet Smith said, "I never said I was letting anybody go, Micah." And as they made the way in towards Coca-Cola Bend, well, the two of them went side by side through there, and in the end Fleet Smith able to defend it well. We do go back to lap 3, however, because here was one of the big moments for Zachary Bowman. And, of course, this was Bowman coming in very hot into turn 1. And once he made his way into the braking zone, yellow flag motorsport in turn 1 seems to be a bit of a difficulty spot today. Came in too late on the brakes and unfortunately got caught up there with Jason Lynn's Audi. And that's what led to the damage, and that's what led to the spin. Unfortunately, it was, of course, Zachary Bowman that missed his braking marker. There's no question about that. But they all did very well, all the circumstances considered. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, we make our way back to your live racing. As we do come on back, well, we've still got plenty of time in this race, and we'll just give you a quick snippet of some of the replays there, because we have got so much battling going on. We want to make sure we do not miss a single battle out there as our drivers continue to roar the way around. And as they do, we'll Major Monsevite, Franz Washing and Ray Two behind. But we can see there, that's a change of position overall for 14th, and that is going to be Mike Almeida getting ahead of Tyler Long. As for that, Ridgely now feeling a bit of a pinch of pressure. Tyler Long wants that place back as soon as possible. He wants the yellow flag motorsport driver to essentially now go be a nuisance to Ridgely and help him out as we ride on board with Tyler Long. And that's the great thing about the AlphaTauri change as well, because everyone is fighting for overall finish positions first and foremost. That is the priority. Well, then it becomes a bit of an education tool for the Delta and the Gamma drives. Do you fight with a driver of a different class in front of you, or do you use them to your advantage? And right now, as long as we're thinking, okay, keep it up, Mike, go annoy Fred a little bit more, get on his inside. I need a line here, but the problem is, as he gets a bit close to the car that's full of stickers on the back, well, that's because Mike Almeida passed Fred Ridgely. Now, Ridgely in turn actually lets that go really intelligently there. Smart driving for the SRG driver, who simply goes, you know what, I'll give him enough space to make the move, but I'm not going to go deep into the corner. He pretty much set himself up there to lose the position to make sure that Tylon could not get past. But now, as they come through turns 4 and 5, coming up through 100R, you can see in the draft there, T0 Racer Ascent Drive getting ready to make another attack, but he is going to have to just wait. It's not easy here, and remember, this circuit, very aggressive tyre use, so it does mean our drivers do need to be a little bit clever. But that's why we do have the all 4 tyre change pit stop at some point, whereby drivers will be required to go and change all 4 tyres in a single pit stop, and they'll have fresh tyres at some point to go to the end of the race. But of course, knowing when to take those tyres is just as important as taking them themselves. And the fact, the later you take them, the fresher the tyres you have towards the end of the race, but are you then able to capitalise on the freshness of the tyre for as long as you need to? And that's what's going to make this race very intriguing compared to our other endurance races, where we have the 1 mandatory tyre change. And it's the question of, do you change both tyres on the front axle? You typically do, because it's the same time as you would change 1 singular tyre on the front axle, and you don't normally change all 4 tyres there, because whilst these machines do use their rear tyres, they are front engine front wheel drive as per the TCR specification formula, the global formula that is used in series such as TC America, also TCR UK, TCR Europe, etc. We'll understand front engine front wheel drive always uses the front tyre significantly more than the rear tyres, because all the drive work and turning work is done by the front. But as they head on down in towards turn number 1, well, here comes Franz Wojciech looking for another move, this time Major Bod's Vice, and we're going up the inside here. Can he get past the 58 driver? The answer is going to be yes, just about. And here comes Ray to you as well. Whatever Sheik does, to you does as well, says Ray to you. And as they go in towards turn number 3, all right, now I don't think he'll refer to himself in the third person, unless he does, of course. Some people do that, but right now, the Sia driver there finding that Bod's Vice is not letting this go. And for Major Bod's Vice, to be fair, he's been bullied here by Alpha Drive as he taps through Sheik's car. But this is great racing. He wants to get to Cooper Akers and Chris McDonald, but McDonald have finally cleared Akers after all their fighting, where Matthew may have been a bit of an intruder, because Franz Wojciech up the inside, and will the B4D's drivers going to get this done, surely, as they come down towards the Dunlop curve. I was going to say the chicane, but we're not running that. But Wojciech comes back again, gets his elbows out and says to Sheik, not to Sheik, to Ray 2, we're not quite done here, as they head onto the brakes, as they roar the way down. Absolutely brilliant fighting, and right now Major Bonswise holding on. Meanwhile, we have lost this race. Have we lost Fred originally? No, we've not. We've got him back from the ether. We thought we'd lost him to a disconnection. Hopefully that's not a sign of an intermittent incoming issue, because if so, it would be the equivalent of an engine getting ready to blow. He's still leading Delta ahead, Tyler Long, with Zachary Leopold splitting the leading Delta trio, because there's Colton Hopstecker on his debut, still running third in Delta after taking that pole position. And right now, when Mark Darnell slowly closes on him, what will Darnell do? Can Darnell get a bit more involved? We'll have to wait and see. And we think it was Mark Darnell's car that was collected on lap number 1 at turns 4 and 5, the car we briefly saw going sideways. But more still to come between all these drivers. And there's still plenty of excitement out there. But at the front of the field, Beaver and Deeves is Wojciech Swirydowicz, now gradually extending a bit of a gap to 1.3 seconds ahead of Micah Hendricks, who has found his way past Fleet Smith. And we'll get a replay of how that move was made in due course. Or will we? No, in fact, we won't. That did get done once we were in our previous replay. So unfortunately, we've missed that one, ladies and gents. It's lost to the annals of time. Although, unfortunately, this is not the same thing as if a tree falls down and nobody's there to see it. Does it still make a sound? The overtake has been made. You can see it on screen. And right now, Fleet Smith is feeling the presence of Shepka getting closer and closer. And could this be the day when Matthew Shepka returns to winning ways? Now, for those of you who are a bit curious with regards to wins for Matthew Shepka and his history with regards to the last time he took a victory, well, we just double checked our statistics, and the last time he took a class win, it was when he was an Alpha Drive before the Gamma class was conceived. It was all the way back in season 10, round number 10 at Sebring. That is his one and only ever overall and class win. But Shepka right now trying to add a second class win to his tally. It won't be his best ever result overall, but it will be his first Gamma win, no doubt about it, if he's able to take this off of Smith. And Shepka's been pushing hard this season for it. He's taken a couple of podiums, but right now wants to go to the very top step of the podium if he can. Carl Trost, meanwhile, chasing after Zach Hadarko. And for Trost, it's been a race that's gone up, down. In fact, lost a bit of ground earlier on. Trost not having a happy run of the last couple of laps and enjoyed a good battle with his teammate. But these two right now definitely, I think, are trying to settle down and trying to establish who is the leading driver of the pair. That can always be a bit of a difficult one because both want to try and prove that they're the one who should go to plan A. But it's not always the situation whereby you can be the plan A driver out there. And sometimes you do have to be one of those drivers who just has to let it go, essentially. But we'll wait and see what is to be for them. As they power the way down towards turn 1, well, here comes Trost looking for the move on the Darko. And with the speed he's picking up here, this is going to be a swap. Surely the Elantra driver is going to get past here as they both start to top out with the top end. The Honda taking longer to get to its top speed. Of course, these TCR machines, they're all running at the same amount of downforce and such. They all have the same top rated speed. It's how they get to that speed that's the difference on balance of performance. And with the engine power and the weight of the car as well, the Elantra a little bit quicker to get to its top speed compared to the Honda. The Honda better on the brakes and through the corners, but Carl Trost there taking the position, now up into 6th place in Delta, 20th overall. Now, no sign of any pit stops anytime soon. Gareth McAllister, meanwhile, after that very slow start, he's running 25th at the moment. Let's not forget about the Yamaha Motorsport driver. He's not giving up, to be fair, and his race pace at the moment is actually on par with your top 5 in Delta. So if McAllister can get up the order, if he can close the gap, there is no reason why he cannot get back into the fight for a top 5 spot in the Delta class. He's just got to take his time, and that's the thing about a long endurance race such as this, an endurance special. We've got a lot of distance to go. This race is not over until the checker flag says so. Hold up a second, that's Zachary Leopold getting rolled coming out to the Dunlop curve and will lose the place to Fred Al Ridgely and splits Al Ridgely and Long. So now he drops down to 15th place. Let's find out what happened there very shortly. That's not the way you want to take Dunlop curve at the best of times. Whilst that's going on, Cooper Akers finds himself still in the thick of the fighting, with Matthew Mayer ahead of him and Francois Schinck, Major Montevice and Ray 2 behind him. Let's head down the start for this straight, and here we go once again for the senior driver of Schinck, where he's gone from 18th to 10th. Now he wants 9th place. He wants to halve his gap to the leaders, but will he be able to do so? We will see as they all fan out here. Cooper Akers goes defensive versus Schinck, coming down towards turn 1. Meanwhile, Major Montevice just watches the distance here, popcorn in his seat, proverbially speaking, and Akers defending here, but Schinck looking around the outside. Does he beat the Pennzoil Super Touring driver on the brakes? He does, but on the exit, it runs a bit wide. Akers does defend still, but he'll be on the outside now to Coca-Cola Bend. This is where Schinck wants to be. He wants to essentially now force Akers to have to either go all in and gamble it, or to he back out. He's going to gamble it here as Akers. He's given the space, to be fair. Schinck, a very respectful driver, and they're still too wide coming through 100R. This is brilliant side-by-side racing between them, and Major Montevice watching this now as we ride on board with the man who wants to try and find opportunity here. Can he make it 3 wide? No, not quite. He thinks about it, but Schinck then covers him off in the middle of the road and says, I know what you're trying to do, Major. I've seen it all before. Indeed, Francois Schinck has been on the grid for many a season. I think he's been on the grid since the very opening season of the series. So here they come down, but Schinck getting that move done versus Akers, now covering him off here, coming in towards Dunlop curve, and Montevice just waiting there behind. I think right now protecting the tyres a little bit of that Hyundai Elantra. We do know that with regards to its tyre degradation, it is the worst over the front axle compared to its rivals. In the conditions we're seeing today, not as potentially as bad as it could be. Normally when that track temperature pushes upwards of 40 degrees centigrade, I always forget what that means in Fahrenheit. I do believe it's around about 105 degrees Fahrenheit, where mental mathematics not being the best there with regards to temperature conversion. That's when you start to see the Elantra really struggle with tyre wear, and that's when you start to see the Honda and the Veloster really come alive, although we don't have too many Velosters this season. Not a very popular car based on the current balance performance. We do have the Gen 2 Audis out in full force, the Hondas, a couple of Elantras as well, but the Honda really is the car that everyone wants to be in at the moment. And well, I think the Japanese market, they've got something right, no doubt about it, even if it's not the FL5, the very last of the Civic Type Rs with an ICE engine as we understand it. But as they're coming down in towards the next braking zone, here comes Montevice looking up the inside of Akers. He's going to try and do what Schinck did on the previous lap. So this is deja vu. We've been in this space before, but this time it is going to be two Gammas fighting as they roar the way onwards. And well, Ray 2 watches behind here, but he thinks to himself, okay, how do I get involved? Well, Montevice tries to go around the outside, but he has not got as much confidence of the brakes as Schinck has, or Akers, and that's understandable given the difference in braking potential of these two cars. So right now he has to stay put. But Looking back from the rear of your 29, and that's getting a very close sweep to the inside there. And here comes Montevice, all up the inside. And there goes Ray Tew. He says, if one can do it, I can do it too. And Montevice goes a bit deep. Ray Tew here gets the better X out the corner, but Montevice just about goes defensive. And here they come down towards Dunlop Curve. Right now, Cooper Akers wants that place back. Ray Tew's probably thinking to himself, that's not quite how it was meant to go. And here comes Akers on the inside. Gets his elbows out there. They touch once, they touch twice, but in the end, it's all clean racing. And we're into that braking zone for turn 11. It will be Ray Tew gets ahead of Cooper Akers. Akers being robbed there, but understandably robbed fairly, if there is such a term. And will drop down to 5th place in Gamma, 12th overall with Mike Dalmeida now for close company, another Gamma driver. But what a battle between them. And as they carry on, well, meanwhile, Fleet Smith in the lead of the Gamma class. He has dropped Shepka slightly to 1.4 seconds, with Micah Hendricks having dropped Smith accordingly by 1.3 seconds. So right now, it is in a bit of a situation whereby you're leading quartet have broken away from the rest of the field, and they're all looking very comfortable. Meanwhile, Logan McKenzie and Michael Polasek together still. McKenzie ahead of Polasek, but something tells me this might be Michael Polasek doing a lot of fuel saving behind McKenzie to see if he can gain some race time. Given that fuel saving can be worth the best part of around about 2 to 4 seconds, pit lane and strategy dependent, and also race time dependent. But Polasek right now, I think he's playing the bigger picture game, which is if I can't catch up to the leaders by passing McKenzie because I'll destroy my tyres in the process, or I'll just use extra fuel when there's no need and McKenzie's on a respectable pace, then instead what I'll simply do is just tuck him behind. And in terms of the pace at the moment, well, McKenzie that last lap at 43.2 or 43.62, Polasek at 43.69, Swirydowicz at 43.17. So they are losing on average around 3 to 4 attempts a lap to Swirydowicz at the rate of knots. So Polasek is 7.5 seconds off the leader, but then again, we know that Polasek can pull off some absolute magic. Mila Flag Motorsport drive, and I do believe a sim coach, but also a real-life racing coach as well in some degree. Although I have seen him in some footage with Swello Meda when he has been doing his real-life documentary series with regards to racing in the North American TCR series, racing the Hyundai Elantra, and Polasek has made a few guest appearances on there, as far as I'm aware. But as he makes his way around right now, Polasek definitely looking very quick out there, and one of those drivers whereby if you ever need to know anything about front-engine front-wheel drive, you speak to Polasek, because he knows it like the back of his hand, as does Wojciech Swirydowicz, to be fair. They may be based on different sides of the pond. I do believe Swirydowicz, whilst he is born and birthright Polish, I believe he actually lives in Ireland of all places, and indeed he's one of the most decorated TCR drivers out there, particularly for European series, and also is a previous champion of the AlphaTauri Challenge, a one-time champion, Polasek a 5-time champion, Logan McKenzie a 6-time champion. But the number of titles doesn't necessarily matter when they're all so evenly matched, and that's the great thing about the AETC. They really are the alphas out there. But meanwhile, we look to Tyler Long, still behind Zachary Leopold and chasing after Fernand, originally the pair of them. But unfortunately for Long, it's one of the situations where he has a Gamma in the way of a Delta lead. So that's what he's got to try and negotiate right now. Or does this become a more strategic race? Only he will know. Unfortunately, we have lost in this race Francois Schink. We are going to try and find out what's happened to Schink in due course, ladies and gentlemen, because we have just lost him from the race, and I believe it may be a connectivity issue for him, and if so, his race has all come to a sudden halt. But meanwhile, for Gareth McAllister, he's found his first target of the day, and it is Lewis Gilbert, who he closed up to. Here he goes, Lewis Gilbert, some damage to the rear of the car, but the Umata Motorsport drive won't mind that. He'll see it as an opportunity here. Gilbert goes defensive. This is for 8th place in Delta. Onto the brakes they go, and when McAllister trying to go around the outside of the hairpin, does he get this done on a much wider line? He's going to carry the momentum. Lewis Gilbert, to be fair, being a bit firm in his defence, but Gareth McAllister sweeps around the outside, and that's a place gain. Now, his next target, John Daniels, who is 13 seconds up the road, and here is the man we haven't really talked about today for T0 Race of Descent, and right now still following Zachary Bowman out there. Now, staying close, but still some work to be done. But as they come around, well, meanwhile, we look back to your leader, and that gives us an opportunity to take a look back in time at some of the big moments over recent history, ladies and gentlemen, including what was a bit of a moment for Michael Polasek on lap number 10, and here we go with a trip back in time. So this was Michael Polasek making his way in towards turn number 1. Onto the brakes he went, trying to close up to Shepka. And as he got the power down, understeered wide, in fact, there. And did this see Logan McKenzie past him? Something tells me it may have, because Polasek then making a small mistake. And, well, only months later, we did have this, where Logan McKenzie did pass Polasek. And it was Polasek going through Coca-Cola Bend. And as he, well, I think that was a slowdown there for Michael Polasek because of how wide he had run out of turn 1. There's plenty of runoff area there, but you gain a lot of time in using it according to the iRacing automated system. And Polasek having to yield the position. But of course, simultaneously with that, we did have the absolute epic that played out just behind them. And this was Ray Tiu fighting hard with Major Bodsvice. And also just in front of Francois Schink. And in the end, it was Tiu on the inside, Bodsvice on the outside. And they went too wide all the way out to the hairpin. And coming down towards the Dunlop curve. Where in the end, Bodsvice defending on the inside. Tiu trying to go all the way around. Elbows out with a bit of contact there. And well, great respectful racing between the two of them. You're always going to get a bit of contact in TCR. These cars can take it, but Bodsvice in the end holding that position through the Dunlop curve. And by the time they got up to the run for the next bend, still holding his ground. But we also did have a bit of change further down the order. This was Carl Troston and Zach Hadarko having a little bit of a scrap, going from lap 11 to lap 12. And this was Trost trying to make the move, and it was into the braking zone for the hairpin. The opening quarter, of course. On the left of the pitch was Trost in his Lancia, Hadarko on the right in his Honda, and then Hadarko having to go for the switchback with regards to the exit there, using the better acceleration of the Honda and the better front end grip that he had at the time to get back ahead, and Carl Trost having to let that one go. We did have also a bit of a battle for Cooper Akers, and this was versus Francois Schink. And well, they made the way in towards turn number 1. This was on lap number 13, and Francois Schink in the end, I think, running a bit wide here. And well, had to back off the throttle to make sure he did not gain time unfairly. And that's what then led to the 2-wide battle coming through Coca-Cola Bend, where Francois Schink finally made the move happen. And well, on the inside there, Cooper Akers on the outside could not find a way to hold it until they got down to turns 4 and 5, and that's when he was able to just make his mark happen. So he had a bit of a touch there, and then when it was in towards the hairpin, they went. Francois Schink still there. Major Bodsvice still tried to look for the move. A little bit of a rub between them into the hairpin, and that is when Francois Schink finally got the move done. Major Bodsvice at that point then said, well, if that's the way it's going to play out, surely I can now make a move for a gamma position. But Cooper Akers seeing that happen and making Major wait his turn, not giving it any chance to do so, and forced him to go around the outside if he wanted to try and make that move stick. Unfortunately, we did have a bit of a moment for Francois Schink, but I believe he has since towed to the pit lane. With that, ladies and gentlemen, we make our way back to live racing. As we do come on back, well, we still do have just over half the race remaining. We've got plenty of time left in this one, as I'll try to make the way towards the end of lap 18. Another one coming up soon. Oh, what's happened here? That's a change of Delta lead, or is it? I'm not quite sure, because it's through there originally, side by side with Tyler Long, as we literally come back to your live racing, coming out to the Dunlop curve, and that is Tyler Long into the lead, and Delta ahead of Fuji originally. There's a lot more of a story than that, and Zachary Leopold, I think, is at the core of it. I think he did get it quite wrong, coming through Dunlop curve. We'll get a replay of that shortly to explain, ladies and gentlemen. That's a twist in the tail, and well, if you're a Fuji originally fan, it's not one you're going to be a big fan of with regards to, because Zachary Leopold right now definitely has seen a change of Delta class around him. The Gamma driver here now has Colton Hopstecker right behind, and well, do not rule out your number 92 driver. As you can see, the car directly behind Zachary Leopold, in fact, is Zachary Bowman, but importantly, Colton Hopstecker is still within arm's reach of that battle as Chris McDonald into the pit. So we are starting to enter the pit window here, and I think a lot of our drivers seeing if they can go exactly halfway. Car up onto the jacks there. That'll be all 4 tyres being changed for McDonald, understandably so, and I think it'll be a one-stop attempt if he can. But with 45 minutes left, we'll give him the fact it's a 1 hour 15 race, so therefore we have seen just over half an hour. We might have a second stop for a splash and dash of fuel, theoretically. It's all going to come down to how conservative they are. Remember, the fuel tanks of these cars, they are restricted as per AlphaTauri change regulations. So therefore, our drivers know exactly what the fuel markers are. All these cars running at very similar fuel loads. By default, the maximum tank is available. And in some races, of course, drivers not opting to run the full fuel tank. And that's particularly for sprint races, but also for the endurance races where they know they've potentially got to make more than one stop. Because the thought process is a lighter car is a faster car if you can get away with it. But understanding as well, what that does do is it restricts your pit window on the car, whereby the less fuel you have to play with, well, naturally the shorter distance you can go before you do come into the pit lane. As Matthew Mayer, when his Gen 1 Audi carries on, or Major Bodsvice with him, and well, I do wonder how long it'll be before somebody's going to have to help the number 12 Audi along that start-finish straight, given the limiter it'll be hitting as he makes his way on around, and comes to Panasonic corner at the moment. And the way we can tell it's a Gen 1 Audi is through the front fascia of the car, whereby it does have essentially the 2015 to 2018 front model of the RS3, where it was upgraded with the lighting pattern in 2019, and that pattern has stuck with the last 2 generations of RS3. But man, into the pit lane then. He decides he's done enough, and to be fair, it's been a commendable charge all the way from what was a 17th place start to get into the top 10. How much further can he go here, and what might be his swan song race for this season? Well, we'll find out. As meanwhile, Swirydowicz Ridgely chases Tyler Long now after that big exchange and change. And, well, Tyler Long definitely feeling a bit of pressure, being alleviated because Zachary Leopold bolting up the inside there under the brakes versus Swirydowicz Ridgely. Now, Ridgely does not respond to that, just lets it go. I think our Ridgely here now starts to focus more strategically. Jason Lin's into the pit lane as well. He'll drop down the order, but still the Gator Racing driver making some steady progress. And we'll have to wait and see where he comes out when it's all said and done. Chris McDonald is one of the first drivers who has served his pit stop. And well, right now, the Crop Promotions driver down in 23rd place after all that exciting battling earlier on. His race has got a bit quiet and calm, but this is the proverbial calm before the storm, because remembering the fact, of course, we've still got a long way to go, and depending on how his race goes versus his rivals on the strategy, he may find himself right back in the thick of fighting for a top 5 finish in Gamma and somewhere inside the top 15. But Matthew Matt leaves the pit lane. It's a long time on the limiter, one of the longest pit lanes here at Fuji International Speedway to accommodate all the machines. And understanding this circuit, of course, not just home to club and national level racing in Japan, but also home to international racing in the form of the FIA World Endurance Championship, 6 hours of Fuji on an annual basis. And also we do have GT World Challenge Asia race here, and also Super GT, which is a national Japanese series, but it does bring international drivers to it. And will Max Verstappen, of course, the big thought process is, when will he race in Super GT at some point? And we also do see the likes of Super Formula race here, and we have seen the likes of Brandon Hartley race in Super Formula very successfully. The absolutely celebrated driver who did not get a fair say in Formula 1, to be fair, I would argue, but definitely has proven the doubters wrong in both Toyota's LMP1, or what is now, in fact, the LMDH car, and also, of course, in Super Formula back in 2022, if my memory serves me correctly. But as Major Montoya makes way into the pit lane, so does Ray too. They both coming together. Carl Trost also comes in. We are definitely right into the midst of pit stops now. And, well, as they all come on down, we also do have a car parked up there. You get a brief cameo from John Agudelo, and well, he does sit in the car there. I don't think he'll be allowed to race, or if he does so, he'll be racing several laps down, but he just makes a brief cameo and then gets back out the car. Well, good to see John there in his Honda, and hopefully we'll get to see the VTEC machine out there at Adelaide in a week's time. But Cooper Akers carries on with Mike Almeida behind him, and right now this is the fight on the road for third place in Gamma and 7th overall, but remember, strategy could completely shake the pot with regards to this. Now, what is proving very intriguing at the very front of the field is the way the gaps are coming down between the leaders. Wojciech Swirydowicz, his advantage has been slightly cut to 1.3 to 1.2 seconds, depending on which part of the circuit they're on and how well the lap goes. From Micah Hendricks and the Fleet Smith, he's closing on the pair of them right now. He has actually got the gap to Hendricks down to 1.1 seconds. This could be simply where the fuel tank is now starting to run low, and he's deciding to push a little bit harder towards the very end of the stint. Hendricks is going to come into the pit. Smith is going another lap. Shepka, meanwhile, has slightly slipped away from the top 3, and he is slowly slipping back towards the clutch of Logan McKinsey and Michael Polasek, but again, at a very gradual rate. He is not falling into their hands very quickly, and well, the senior driver, even if he doesn't win in the Gamma Class day, this will be one of his best performances of the season, for the simple reason he has put together a brilliant package here at Fuji, whether it be in qualifying or the race itself, and he'll be very happy with a 4th place finish, I can tell you that. As he comes on through, well, of course, he won a little bit more. Hendricks is in then, but everyone else still staying out. And well, we will get a replay of how exactly Swirydowicz originally lost the lead of the Delta class, but we'll only do it after the pit stops, ladies and gentlemen, just because of the fact we don't want to miss a single pit stop. We do need to keep a good idea of what's happening strategically at the moment. Hendricks being served as our originally there, trying to make what is a lap on Zachary Bowman, and a bit of difficulty versus the Yellow Flag Motorsport driver, went a bit wide at turn 1. And I think the brakes on that Audi do need a little bit of a rest, as do the tyres on the inside there. Trying to fight his way on past lap down driver. And Bowman right now just adhering to the rules, which is maintain your line, be predictable, and let the lead lap car make the overtake on you. As long as you don't fight, that is the fundamental rule when it comes to being a lap down car. If you start to fight, the stewards will very quickly get ready to throw the ATC book at you, as that's a big snaky moment on braking there for Swirydowicz Ridgely. Something tells me those front tyres are starting to let go for the 119 driver, and he'll soon be coming to the pit lane. And indeed, right now, that just does not look to be a very happy car there for our Audi driver. And Tai Long is extracted a gap as a result. And in terms of those weather conditions here today, for those curious, we do have quite a relatively pleasant ambient temperature, 72 degrees Fahrenheit, and what is 83 degrees Fahrenheit track temperature. A partial cloud and sunshine, meaning the circuit is not warming up too much. Indeed, we are in the late afternoon here in Japan, and therefore it's not too hot. It is a nice day, and therefore it does mean that weather conditions are proving to be less of a quintessential factor. But meanwhile, into the pits on leader Gamma comes Fleet Smith. Matthew Shepka also comes in. Meanwhile, Swirydowicz, McKinsey and Polasek all stay out. What will Cooper Akers do? Well, he stays out as well, bringing Mike D'Almeida along for the ride. This is definitely becoming a one-stop race for our drivers, unless anybody makes a complete ham sandwich or fuel calculation, at which point they may be in for a quick splash and dash. And that has happened a few times this season, but Cooper Akers is going to defend here versus Mike D'Almeida. This is not where you want to be right towards the end of a stint, which is having to potentially start to battle, because this is where all the time is lost, as Gareth McAllister is leaving the pit lane as well. And so great to see he's in and getting his pit stop done and dusted, although he's a lap down at the moment. But remember, we will be expecting pit stops for our leaders, and that will most likely reinstate him, at least for a time, onto the lead lap. But after the pit stops, Matthew back ahead of Ray 2 with Major Monsweiss in front. So Monsweiss then get back out ahead of the Gen 1 Audi S-G driver. And we'll come through that right-hander at turn number 11 at the moment. Well, Monsweiss gaining the on-track strategic advantage, but will it stay that way? Chris McDonald has cleared this group by the best part of 6 seconds. But we're still seeing Fleet Smith being serviced. Cars all up at the jacks, of course. This will be the one who stop. They come crashing down off the jacks, and like that, Fleet Smith gets going, bumps the car and moves his way onwards. Matthew Shepka comes through as well. Here comes Hendricks. So Hendricks is back out ahead of Smith. Meanwhile, Lewis Gilbert makes his way on down. Gilbert yet to take a pit stop, but to be fair, he'll be happy to be just on the coattails of the top 10. Albeit so happy, in fact, he outbrakes himself into turn 1. I think scared of where Shepka was going to be, and then realising Shepka is bound to a pit exit line. But meanwhile, Zachary Leopold heads on down pit road, and well, he's about to leave it, as is Tai Long right behind him. Fred Alrigi as well, Mark Darnell, and Darnell has slowly and steadily crept up behind these guys, so Darnell could be a force to be reckoned with here. Here he comes out the pit lane. Of course, we're wondering where he will be in relation to Colton Hopstecker when Hopstecker comes in, and Zach Hudarko as well, who's a little bit further behind. It's all still to play for, and then you have, of course, the fight for 14th place, at least on the road right now. We believe this is a fight for a spot inside the top 10. For Major Monsweiss versus Matthew Mayer and Ray Teo. Cooper Akers into the pit lane. So is Michael Polasek. They're both in. As I look at my content booth window, Swirydowicz, McKinsey and D'Almeida yet to come in. So still a bit of time in this one. Colton Hopstecker refusing to come in as well. They want to push the fuel tank as far as they possibly can, give themselves the lightest possible car. And this is where the fuel saving really comes in, because whilst you lose natural race time in a stint by fuel saving, because you are lapping slower, you lift and coast technically in order to save that fuel as much as possible. You gain over race time by spending less time in the pit lane. Of course, the shorter the time you spend in the pits, the better, because understandably, it is a long way to the pits, and being on the limiter always is nasty. But meanwhile, Jason then gets back ahead of Mark Darnell. So change position there. We thought Darnell had cleared Lynn, not quite so. Darnell runs very wide, and when then Darnell brings himself back on the road at the exit Dunlop curve, the two teammates there for Gator Racing, and well, that is going to be Jason Lynn effectively, we believe, into 4th place in Delta, potentially 3rd. All subject to where Hopstecker and Hudarko play out in the picture. So that's what we're waiting to find out. As Cooper Akers is into the pit lane, Carl Trost here going on the attack versus Darnell and Lynn, trying to get himself a bit more involved. But Cooper Akers is leaving the pits now, and as he does so, where's he going to come out? Where's Major Monsweiss? Here he is. Akers already making his way out the pit lane, but he's going to fall behind them, because there's Cooper Akers on the inside. He's lost out the most here compared to Mayer and Monsweiss. So now Cooper Akers has got to do this all over again, this battle. Well, he's done it once, surely he can do it twice, and Major Monsweiss actually has gained the most out of the quartet. He's got to the head of that fight for what is 12th place on the road currently, but it will be somewhere inside the top 10 once all the pit stops are done. But meanwhile, Wojciech Swirydowicz up into the pit lane and up into the jacks. And meanwhile, Logan McKinsey goes another lap here. McKinsey's going to go the longest of everybody at this rate. Mike D'Almeida follows him, albeit not on the same picture. He is 16.6 seconds behind, but the Yellow Flag Motorsport driver matching the Pennzoil Super Touring driver for strategy. And Mike D'Almeida here, I think, being given some advice, which is to go as long as possible and just keep himself out of fighting, understandably. And the overcut has its advantages. You naturally will have a quicker car at your potential fingertips because you've got a lighter car, but you're also driving a car with the most worn tyres. You have to be ready for that transition of lower front end grip. But the reverse is as well, you keep your way outside of all the battles theoretically, and well, that's the hard part of the undercut, or whereby you've just pitted and come out amongst other drivers. Until everybody's pitted, a single fight can suddenly cost you so much time. But of course, there's stuff to say drivers can't fight, and that's where strategy really becomes that big game. But as we do see a bit of run wide there, Carl Trost pushing hard to chase down Lewis Gilbert, who has, with that Lewis Gilbert in front of these drivers right now, yet to pit as he hops and skips away over the curve. And I think Gilbert is struggling for tyre life. Well, Carl Trost is going to go around the outside of Panasonic corner. It's not going to work, but he will do instead. He's trying to set up a run. But Lewis Gilbert in the end struggling to that inside apex. And well, Trost did not get the switchback he wanted. Gilbert will come into the pit lane by the looks of things. He pulls the inside. He doesn't want to obstruct, particularly his teammate Mark Darnell as they come on down with 32 minutes left to go. And well, here we go then. Mark Darnell looking for an opportunity. Gilbert in. Logan McKenzie in as well. They've gone as far as they can. Lewis Gilbert going a grand total of 24 laps. Logan McKenzie going a grand total of 25. And Mike D'Almeida and Colton Hopsecker, plus Zach Hadark and John Daniels, all still yet to pit, but surely they will come in soon. But hold the phone on that, because here is Wojciech Swirydowicz side by side with Micah Hendricks. Swirydowicz taking that place back. So Swirydowicz actually lost out in the pits compared to Hendricks. Hendricks gained ground, and Swirydowicz is going to take it back. Now, will that give Logan McKenzie an opportunity then to get a lot closer to these two, but actually even jump them? Suddenly, we have a battle on here for the lead of the race, the effective lead. Swirydowicz has just retaken it, but for how long will he retake it? As Hendricks would love to take it back, and Fleet Smith 1.7 seconds behind. But where is Shepka? There is Shepka 4 seconds behind. So Shepka has lost out versus the Gamma leader after the pit stops. But to see how much he can try and close up. Michael Polasek still 4.2 seconds behind there. His stop definitely has not worked out the way he's wanted it to. And well, that has definitely proven to be a little bit of a frustrating moment perhaps in the fact that he's still quite a way behind. But as Logan McKenzie still being serviced, well, we do have Colton Hopseck into the pit lane. There he is. Well, Wojciech Swirydowicz comes on through, but here comes Hendricks looking around the outside, and McKenzie's leaving the pit lane now, so he's going to come up well behind this, and Swirydowicz trying to defend for the remaining 30 minutes of this race, plus a final lap. So this is going to come down to the wire, and Hendricks wants this now. He wants it bad. And Fleet Smith, meanwhile, understandably watching on and perhaps thinking to himself, how do I get involved here? Can I potentially steal the overall win from both of the Alphas in front of me? Well, if so, that definitely would be an absolutely brilliant achievement from Fleet Smith. He's already taken the pole position overall today, so he will be getting a bonus point for that as Hendricks goes to the move at the inside at 100R. And, well, makes contact once, makes contact twice, and in the end coming in towards the hairpin. He's really thrown everything at this, and Swirydowicz right now. Oh, a bit of touch between them, and once they come out the corner, that was almost around there for Swirydowicz, and Hendricks right now, literally biffing, bumping, bashing, literally every time they come through a corner. Hendricks so quick, Swirydowicz is struggling here as they come in towards the Dunlop curve, looking around the outside this time. He's literally trying every place you don't go at Fuji. And where's he next going to go? Surely he's not going to time out the inside. He's going to go for it in towards turn number 11. Hendricks throws everything at this, and Swirydowicz goes deep, takes the sausage curves there. That's not going to help the suspension at all, and now can Hendricks go around the outside? There's contact between the two of them, but looks like the Hendricks goes sideways. Swirydowicz there, meanwhile, takes it inside, takes it easy and backs off, and Fleet Smith goes through. Smith is into the lead of the race with half an hour to go. It's not over yet, but Hendricks allowed to retake the place. Fair racing from Swirydowicz there to give the place back, but Sonny, Matthew Shepka's win 2.5 seconds in this fight. You can see behind this Polasek and McKenzie. And McKenzie actually came out pretty much dead even with Polasek. Let's get a replay of how they emerged out the pit lane, because Michael Polasek just getting back ahead for now. But this is effectively the fight for 5th place. And well, they'll be looking in front of them and realise that Hendricks and Swirydowicz are going at it as if it's bumper cars. Well, as they come down right now, Hendricks goes all in, and he has to defend as much as humanly possible here. But as we look back from the rear of Hendricks' car, well, it's going to be Swirydowicz right now looking for a move. And for Swirydowicz, well, understanding it was looking to be so in control in the first stint. But what's happened in second stint is he's just struggling to get the tyres switched on, because it's not the same Swirydowicz we saw for the first half of this race. And well, sometimes that's the way it goes. When you put a new set of tyres on, they don't always come to you naturally anymore. You may be sat there thinking, well, surely on a simulator, the tyres are always going to be modelled. Yes, but you've got to consider that the ambient conditions have evolved. The rubber on the circuit has evolved. Track temperature has changed. And all of that adds up. And all these cars, they are so sensitive to micro adjustments in those conditions out there. And also, getting 2 sets of tyres up to temperature is never quite the same experience. And that's what Swirydowicz seems to be struggling with, as we still have a top 3 who have yet to pit. They're going the distance, our top 3 of Mike D'Almeida, Zach Hadarka, John Daniels, and will credit where it's due to them, where everyone else has pitted now is on much fresher rubber to the end. They're trying to give themselves the freshest possible rubber right at the end of the race. Although in the end, the fuel tank will say to them, you can't go any further. And, well, speaking of which, Zach Hidako into the pits in the lead of Delta, which surely is going to enable his teammate Tyler Long to retake that lead with a 5.5 second gap to Fuji Ridgely, who still has Colton Hopsack, who has actually gained time on Al Ridgely as a result of going very long indeed. Well, good work there for Colton Hopsack to do so. I think Fuji Ridgely is struggling a little bit on those newer tyres as well. And, well, we have seen Swirydowicz struggling, and now Ad Ridgely as well, as they come in towards the final third of the lap. But as they do, well, Zach Hidako being serviced there. It's a long wait until he comes down off those jacks. He's still got another 25 seconds to go. Mike Almeida, we are still leading this race. And, well, we do love to see Mike all the way up there. He's enjoyed himself. And John Daniels, 38 seconds behind. To be fair, he's going to slip a long way down the order when he takes his pit stop. But for now, at least, let's enjoy him being in second place. And he'll be smiling about this. It's always fun for him. But meanwhile, coming back to the fun and festivities here of Hendricks versus Swirydowicz. This is part 3. Indeed, if we carry on like this, we're going to be having more parts of Rocky movies. As they make the way now, it's two titans of the proverbial TCR boxing ring making the way on around. And, well, Hendricks has definitely landed a few blows so far, but Swirydowicz should try to come back here. Well, as long as they keep it relatively clean, we don't mind it. And right now, Fleet Smith is looking behind him thinking, keep fighting, guys. I want no part of this. And, well, if you're Hendricks and Swirydowicz right now, this is a horrible place to be, because on the one hand, they both want to beat the other driver. But, of course, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. And the problem is they've got a joint enemy in front of them in the form of Fleet Smith, who right now, he just wants to fall out of vision. Ideally, what he's probably saying, go on, guys, forget that I exist. Just think, that number 2, it's actually a number 1 on your relative, and that is you're battling to be number 1 of the Alpha drivers out there. And a reminder, of course, ladies and gentlemen, the Alphas get no bonus points for where they finish on their podium. They don't actually have a podium as such. They only score with overall points, plus the standard bonus points for the fastest lap, etc. So therefore, for the Alphas, they've really got the hardest task out there, which is they need to beat everybody. But that's why they are the best of the best, and that's why they are considered to be your Alpha class. And, well, as they come towards the end of lap number 29, well, we've still got plenty more fighting between them to come. But as they head onwards, we take a look back in time, ladies and gentlemen, at some of the big moments over the last few laps, as we do make our way back to what happened to Zachary Leopold and how Fuji Ridgely lost the lead of the Delta class before the pit stops. So this was coming down in towards the braking zone for Dunlop Curve, and it was Fuji Ridgely ahead of Zachary Leopold as they came in, and it was a tap to the rear there. A little bit of a mammoth undertaking under braking there from Zachary Leopold, clips the rear of Ridgely, and almost went up into the air, and that enabled Tyler Long to have a move around the outside, an unfortunate instant. And look at Leopold immediately addressing his mistake there, giving up the place to Fuji Ridgely. Unfortunately, Fuji Ridgely in the heat of the moment, he won't be too impressed about that, but I'm sure they'll talk about it afterwards, and all will be forgiven. But Leopold just a bit too eager on the brakes. It's understandable when you're coming into Dunlop Curve, you want to carry as much speed as possible, but in the dirty of another car, the fact you have his brake line marked up by a car in front of him, he won't have seen his normal line, and unfortunately just getting it slightly wrong. But after that, of course, we did have a bit of other battling as well, including what was absolutely brilliant fighting, which saw a bit of difficulty for Gareth McAllister, actually. And we had Gareth McAllister having to go a bit wrong in towards turn at number 1. This was McAllister under braking. And what went wrong here into the opening corner? And the answer to that question is he went round an exit. Something tells me that might be a bit of worn tyres there for the UMAT Motorsport driver and a bit too eager on the throttle pedal. But as Logan McKenzie left the pit lane on lap 26, well, this is what it looked like as he started to leave it versus none other than Michael Polasek, who was still making his way down the start-finish straight. And as he did so, well, we'll come to the Hendricks-Swirydowicz battle shortly into the replay, but Polasek made his way down. McKenzie had already left the pit lane, so in the end, Polasek had to work hard here to pass Logan McKenzie, but it was McKenzie who came out ahead. And then later on in the lap, this was how Polasek took back what was effectively at the time 5th place overall, and it was at next bend. McKenzie on those warming up tyres went very deep, and well, in the end, Polasek just simply swept up the inside, looked around the outside here at Panasonic Corner, the two of them literally in side by side all the way through. Polasek squeezed in McKenzie to make sure he had the upper hand, and he got the move done. Brilliant driving from him. But of course, many of you will be wondering what exactly happened in the absolute epic that was Hendricks versus Swirydowicz. Well, here we go, ladies and gentlemen, back for a trip in time. And this was on lap 25. Swirydowicz struggling after leaving the pit lane with his cold tyres. They're going out 100R in towards the old hairpin. Well, this was a move from Swirydowicz first and foremost, trying to defend versus Hendricks. But Hendricks on the inside line, well, he got the nose ahead, but then it was a drag race through 300R in towards Dunlop Curve. And as they came too wide down through here, it was not going to be over that immediately for Wojciech Swirydowicz. Once he gets a bit between his teeth, he doesn't give up, and Hendricks had to back off for that brief moment. But then, a little bit later on, we saw even more fighting between them, and this was on lap 26, and this was heading down the start-finish straight, and this was the absolute epic that unfolded on lap 26, whereby the two of them were too wide coming into the braking zone for the opening corner, with Fleet Smith watching on behind. And, well, just hold on to the hats at this point, ladies and gents, because for Hendricks, it was, as we look on board his camera at the time, the crop promotion driver looking one way then the other, but couldn't quite get the move done in towards turn number 1, so he had to wait a little bit later on to try and make the move happen. And this was it going through. What was none other than the run in towards turn number 11. Dived up the inside, went all in for it. But as they then made the way up the hill, well, this is where it all changed, because it was Wojciech Swirydowicz on the inside and just understeered slightly and tapped the rear left quarter panel of Hendricks' car. And then Fleet Smith saw the door was wide open and just squeezed his way between the pair. And this is what it looked like from on board Fleet Smith's perspective. And, well, sees them fight in front whilst he's in third at the time, effectively. And, well, in the end, where Hendricks goes sideways, Swirydowicz put into left, the seas parted, and just like what was Moses all those years ago, he parted the seas of Alphas, and the Gamma went on through, not to Galilee, but to the lead of the race. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we come back to none other than your live racing. And well, an absolute epic, no doubt about it. And as we carry on the story, there's still more to go. And, well, what's next in the story, I hear you ask? Well, 21.5 minutes still remain in this race, and our top three are getting closer and closer once again. We've also had our final pit stops done there for John Daniels, and also for none other than what was Zachary Bowman. So they both served their pit stops. They are done and dusted. Mike Almeida's, of course, had his pit stop as well. So therefore, no more pit stops expected on the strategic card. From this point onwards, if there's any pit stops, it will be for drive-through penalties. Alternatively, it will be for splash and dash of the fuel, as Wojciech Swirydowicz tries to come back on the exit next bed versus what is Michael Hendricks. And Hendricks right now feeling the pressure, and Swirydowicz, he's finally got those tyres turned on that Honda. And my goodness, he turning the pressure on here as they make their way down the start-finish straight. We've still got a long way to go in this race. For Fleet Smith right now, every time they start to get closer, they fight once again. He will be egging them on inside that car as much as possible in his Audi as he breaks away. But right now, it's the plucky Honda of Swirydowicz who wants another go at this, as the sun gradually sets in the background here at Fuji. And, well, Swirydowicz on the inside, Hendricks on the outside here. Two, they go into one. But who's actually going to be number one coming out of it? And it will be Swirydowicz who takes back second place. But Hendricks right now, I think as much as he wants to bite it back here, I think he's going to mind his temper and mind his manners. And I think for Hendricks, he knows what's in store, really. It's not the fight for second they're playing for, it's the fight for the overall win. And to do so, someone has to let this battle end to get close to Fleet Smith to start the battle all over again. So I think for Hendricks right now, he's probably going to wait a lap or two, and probably under his visor he'll be saying, Wojciech, go hunt Fleet, otherwise I'll be coming back at you within about 2 laps time, because we've still got time to go. And remember, we are heading into the unknown soon, ladies and gentlemen, because all of our endurance races have typically been 60 to 45 minutes, and, well, this one 75 minutes. It is our special for this season, and, well, they'll all be going just a little bit deeper, and this is where tired arms and legs will start to become an increasingly important factor. But meanwhile, as we look to rate you, he chased after Matthew Mayer. Mayer right now in that Audi Gen 1 car that definitely should be put in the retirement home for TCR machines. Still available on iRacing, of course, and still a race as per the balance of performance for the TCR category. It was included in the updated BOP spec. Unfortunately, it's just the gearing has not been adjusted. Otherwise, it would still be a car that could be competed in for most race circuits. Right now, rate you still trying to go on the attack as much as possible versus Mayer, but the SRG driver is not giving in here to pressure. He's going to hold on as long as he can. This will be a last hurrah, and he will do it in style versus the B&D's driver, who switches from one side to the other. And we'll rate you at this point, hoping he can use his Honda's better quartering capabilities to beat that Audi. But to do so, well, first he's got to find a way to get alongside as they power their way out the corner. And we'll tuck it in there behind as he makes his way onwards. And forward to you, well, building up that power little by little, but as he tucks into the draft here, you can see not really able to gain that Audi. And then suddenly there's going to come a point when they do get into 6th gear, and this is where you'll see Mayer will suddenly start to lose top speed, not because he's not accelerated it, well, not because he can't go any faster, it's just the car is completely restricted in terms of its top end, and that's why TU is able to stay static in that gap. But the problem is his Honda takes so long to get up to its maximum speed that Mayer in the end is able to keep him at bay. But this is where they roll the way onto lap 33, and it's still a waiting game between the two drivers here as they go in towards Coca-Cola Bend, and Ray Hewitt just hoping he can find a way in at the end sooner rather than later. on his way down the hill, looking down the outside. Major Monsivice has pulled away from the pair of them. He's chasing after Chris McDonald, who is 5 seconds up the road in the battle for the Gamma third place spot. But Chris McDonald does seem to be a bit safe at the moment as Mayer and Hugh follow after him. And for Monsivice, he'll be hoping he does not get reeled backward into this battle, because suddenly it would be a situation whereby it'll be the battle that he did so well to escape on using strategy and also brawn on circuit, but a third time of it may be a bit too much of Monsivice, you never know. As he drives all the way through, well, if you don't mind me, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to take a quick sip of water. I've yet to touch water glass all broadcast today, and well, the action has been absolutely brilliant. I mean, to be fair, I'm thirsty for it, but we're absolutely drenched in absolutely incredible overtaking action. As meanwhile, Fleet Smith flashing his headlights, going on to another lap. I think that's a signal to the team saying, please help. He's wary of the fact that right now he does have Wojciech Swirydowicz and Michael Hendricks making very rapid progress towards him. Well, the temporary alliance between the two Alpha drivers is definitely paying off. And in fact, as we look a bit further back, Matthew Shepka 4 seconds behind, and then there's Polasek and McKinsey. And McKinsey right now playing the game of follow the leader in the pair, and understanding they want to get to Shepka to see if they can take full place off him and gain a few more points. As they get ready for Coca-Cola Ben, McKinsey right now, if he was any close at this point, he would be looking to make a move. We don't have to back off entirely there, because he won't want to tap his rival on the rear bumper. That goes to show you the patience that's been exhibited by McKinsey, but these two, they really do know each other very well in terms of their antics both on and off circuit, and that's the thing. In the Alpha Touring Challenge, a lot of these drivers, they are veterans, not just of 1 or 2 seasons, but several seasons, the best part of 4 to 5 years of racing. And when you do have drivers who have raced that long, they all know the ins and outs of each other. They all know how they behave, how they react under certain circumstances, and that's what makes the Alpha Touring Challenge so exciting. The fact that you do have these drivers who know each other so well, it really comes down in the end to what can one driver do to be unpredictable to the other, whilst also racing fairly. But right now, Raythew pushing Mayer out of the hairpin. So to note, we're going to keep going. We're going to close up some Monsivice before I'm going to make a move on you. Raythew right now definitely helping Mayer out. You can see the slight bump in the rear bumper. The degradation on the rear bumper there, we should say, the number 12 Audi Gen 1, and that does explain why Raythew right now just taking its time as they inch little by little towards Major Monsivice at approximately 2/10 a lap. But back to the front of the field we go, and right now Fleet Smith having to go defensive here down the start-finish straight. New fastest lap race, a 42.603 for Wojciech Swirydowicz. Right now, fuel coming out of their car, fresher tyres as well. Fleet Smith's going to have to get all the stops out here if he wants to take the overall win. Can he do so? Wojciech Swirydowicz looking around the outside immediately, going on the attack here, and well, he's going to be on the inside of a Coca-Cola bed. This is looking as though right now Swirydowicz is in the right place to make this move happen. On the inside there, Swirydowicz will go to Coca-Cola at the front, and he will get that move done. Oh, will he? No, he takes a lot of apex curb, and it actually unsettles the car slightly, and Fleet Smith comes back into 100R. And keep in mind, Fleet Smith has only ever taken one overall win, and that was back in season 14, round number 9 at Laguna Seca. And right now, he wants to see if he can make it his second overall win of his career, and will be his third class win. He was once an Alpha, and he's taken 2 Gamma wins, his last one coming all the way back at Barber earlier on this season. But Fleet Smith right now digging in here, and we're hoping that the Fuji livery on the car is going to be able to give him the extra 5% he needs to hold on. But Swirydowicz started to revel in the situation. Michael Hendricks, meanwhile, the Crop Promotions driver here, letting the two in front fight. And of course, this is now an exhibition of patience here for Hendricks, because he's got time. He'll let the two of them take a little bit of life out of each other before he starts to get ready to attack himself. As we jump on board here, the Garage 61 inspired Crop Promotions 33 machine as he comes up towards turn number 14 in towards Panasonic corner. I do believe the corner renamed Panasonic in tribute to when Toyota have raced in Formula 1, and their main sponsor on the car was none other than Panasonic. As they make their way down the start finish straight right now, he won't be thinking about that. All he'll be thinking about is, am I on TV, like a Panasonic TV? And the answer is he definitely is. He heads on down the start finish straight, well, decides not to weave here. And this is Hendricks playing conservatism at its finest right now. He knows he does not need to play the silly shenanigans. Not right now, at least. Perhaps in about 10 minutes' time he will. But at the moment, let the two in front take life out of the cars. Be the smarter long-term driver. That's what he's got to do. And if he can be that patient, Sonny, in the final 5 minutes, he will be the one to watch. But as our leaders make the way onto another lap, meanwhile, we do have Raythew pushing Mayer along even so. And Major Mod Slice at the moment, 1 second away, but very slowly being caught in the foreground of your camera shot. But Ray to you helping Bear along here. And I do love the respect that's being shown here for the Beaver and D's driver. He could really force a move out of this, but I think he does want to give the SRG Audi an opportunity to have one last hurrah as they make their way in towards another lap. He will go for the move towards the end. I'm certain of that because they're not teammates. They will want the points for Beaver and D's, but understandably as well, he wants to see if they can help each other because after that, it is 5 seconds to Chris McDonald. And that may be too big of a gap to overhaul in the time they've got remaining. Meanwhile, that's a run wide there for Colton Hopsecker. He's fallen down the order a little bit. That is unexpected. And, well, Colton Hopsecker has lost out quite a few places in recent history. We've only just been brought to the attention of that. He's dropped down from what was third in the Delta class to 5th. And, well, can we get a quick replay to explain what's happened? I think we can, ladies and gentlemen. And here we go for a quick trip back in time. So this was on lap number 35. Colton Hopsecker was in third place at the time in Delta and 16th overall. Going very slowly there through 300R. I think that's for a slowdown penalty. That'll be track limit. So he's yielded the position to Jason Lynn. And then on the next lap, well, he's had it go a bit wrong down the start finish straight, and this was on braking in towards turn number 1. He's carried all the speed in, a bit too much speed, ran wide, and at that point he's had to lift off the throttle to make sure he does not rejoin and pick up a slowdown. And Carl Trost taking up 4th place in Delta. Well, a late gain there for Carl Trost, but to be fair, he'll be pleased as punch for that because he has definitely been a bit patient. And with that, we make our way back to your live racing, ladies and gentlemen. And as we do come back, well, still a bit of time remaining in this one. And, well, in terms of number of laps we're expecting, based on a bit of mental mathematics, we're expecting a grand total of 43 laps in this race at this time. So, therefore, we're on lap 37. You do the quick mental mathematics. We have got 7 to go, including the lap we are on. Or should we say 6.5 laps right now? Fleet Smith trying to hold off Wojciech Swirydowicz and Micah Hendricks. For Swirydowicz, of course, a 2nd place here versus Polasek's 5th place. It would see him gain more in the championship. It would extend his lead beyond 100 points. And for Swirydowicz, I mean, going into the final 3 rounds, well, he could potentially seal the deal in theory at what would be Adelaide, but that would require what would be Polasek to have a nightmare day at Adelaide, but it would be a huge advantage to Swirydowicz as things currently stand. And again, it's when you consider how the drop scores play out, that is where the mathematics gets a bit more complicated, because should he do well at Adelaide, we're then into the final 2 rounds of the championship. And at that point, of course, Swirydowicz in theory could consign those 2 rounds to be 0 scores, and he would have his final total, whereas meanwhile for Polasek, he's still got work to do to chisel that gap down. So for Swirydowicz, taking the win here could be vital for him to see that 2nd crown in his AlphaTauri Challenge career later on this season. And that's why Fleet Smith right now is weaving one way, then the other. And well, he's going to be able to get away with it this time. He's got to be careful though with doing it. But here comes Swirydowicz on the outside. So now Smith cannot weave anymore. He has to commit to a defensive line and under braking into the hairpin. Here we go. Swirydowicz looking around the outside. He's been waiting this. Oh, going to be a bit of a lock up there from what was Hendricks behind. But as they come out the corner, Swirydowicz this time is already ahead before they get to Coca-Cola Bend. And I think Swirydowicz has got it done. He has taken the lead. But looking back from behind, here comes Fleet Smith right back into him immediately. But he has to back off coming out of Coca-Cola. And Swirydowicz not confident on Coca-Cola by comparison with Smith. But the problem is Smith gets too close too soon. Has to back off now. Here comes Hendricks looking for a potential move. A bit of a tap on the rear of Smith's car coming up towards the hairpin. He's not going to be able to get that done there. You can see Hendricks right now looking one way then the other, going for the switchback. Smith parks it on apex. He forces Hendricks to go the long way round at 300R, and that means he's got to drive for a much wider circumference. He's going to burn off some speed as they head down towards the Dunlop hairpin, or Dunlop chicane, not the Dunlop chicane, going to be the Dunlop curve. There we go, third time asking, we've got it right, and here comes Hendricks. Unlike Swirydowicz, who needed 3 attempts to get it done. Hendricks may be able to get it done in 2 here as he looks around the outside through turn 11. Fuller Smith defending hard. He's going to try to hold it all the way around the outside through Nets Bend. That's going to be so difficult to do. He's better off backing off and trying to switch back here. That's what he will try. But Hendricks has seen that one before. Parks up an apex and says, nope, I've done that. We're now going to see where we go in Panasonic corner. And Fleet Smith here, well, he's following Hendricks literally in the wheel tracks as they come out the bend. 9 minutes to go. Swirydowicz takes the lead in this race, and for the Beaver and D's driver, well, it was all done. The every turns 1 through to 3 on the lap But right now, he's got to break away here. If he can break away versus Hendricks and drop Hendricks to fight with Smith all the way to the end. Well, the Gamma leader, yes, he'll be a bit upset. The team will be sad that right now the B4D's machine, the little bumblebee car, it may not be able to take what will be the overall win here today. But he's not giving up, Smith. He's coming back for second. He looks up the inside versus Hendricks here. And Hendricks, I don't think he expected this. And the Croc Potions driver right now is making sure he gives them space. But here they go, up towards Coca-Cola Bend this time. And Smith's going to try and get round the outside here. But Hendricks outpowers him in the run, and here they come through turn 3. Behind him you can see Michael Polasek and Matthew Shepka getting closer and closer. Shepka right now trying to hold on for fourth and second in Gamma, and well, he's got Polasek only 1.3 seconds behind. They're 4 seconds adrift to this battle, but Smith does let it go into 100. That might be it for the battle for second place for Fleet Smith right now. I think he's had the call of the radio, which is Fleet, as much as you want it, remember what's at stake here. It is the Gamma win, and it will still be a huge haul of points this third place overall. And with John Lauzon not on the grid today, well, Lauzon, of course, does have the ability to take this to the drop score, but for Fleet Smith, he's got to figure the championship pitch, and that's exactly what he's doing. Shepka is now 2.5 seconds behind versus Smith. And at this point, Shepka could, in theory, close up to it, depending on what pace he's able to deploy. They do have the amount of motorsport and Gareth McAllister between them, who will respect the blue flags most likely when he comes up. I wouldn't say that McAllister would ever not do so. And right now for Shepka, can he close that gap down? Has Smith taken the life out of his tyres? But he does not look to be happy in the car right now, or is just simply trying to regroup mentally. It sometimes can hurt a little bit, and you've got to get yourself back together. Meanwhile, Delta leader Tyler Long, he's all like a coup breakers the 12th place, with Zachary Leopold closing, but they're 10 seconds away from third hour originally, the second of your Delta drivers. Jason Lynn, meanwhile, has Carl Troster encroaching company. Troster is having a late revival in this race. Can Trost potentially steal away a spot on the podium here, given the fact he started all the way down 8th place in Delta? So for Trost, that would show you it's not about how you start the day, it's about how you end it. But many will be asking, where was this at the T0 race of the Centro earlier on in the day? Well, either way, right now, he's going to go for it. As meanwhile, as they roll the way through, well, we just had a brief intermittent connectivity issue for Hendricks. Surely that's not a sign of an upcoming engine issue for Hendricks. If so, that's not the way we want second place to end up, ladies and gentlemen, and hopefully not so. But right now, Carl Trost pushing after Jason Lynn and trying to have one last run at this. We've also got John Daniels catching up to Yellow Flag Motorsports and Zachary Bowman, so they could have a fight for 21st and 8th in Gamma yet. Let's wait and see which way this is going to go right at the very end. But as all these drivers continue to push onwards, indeed this race is not over until that checkered flag. They say that with all motorsport, but really here today at Fuji, we are seeing that in full force. But Wojciech Swirydowicz now in control of this race, 1.6 seconds ahead of Micah Hendricks. And Fleet Smith 2.5 seconds behind. Well, we definitely know who our top 3 contenders are, and we seem to know what the finishing order could be. As Smith, meanwhile, that last lap lost a huge amount of time, lost the best part of 2.2 seconds to Shepka, and Shepka right now is pushing hard, but he's bringing Polasek and McKinsey on the journey with him. And Michael Polasek right now inching closer and closer. Hold up, we've had a change of position. That's Cooper Akers lose out versus Tyler Long, and also Zachary Leopold. Well, right now the Pennzoil Super Touring drivers have had a bit of a switcheroo. But why exactly have they had a switcheroo? Let's get a quick replay to inform you, ladies and gentlemen. Here we go. So this was Cooper Akers making his way out of 100R, and as he did so, went a little bit wide off the corner, and I think that's enabled Tyler Long to get through. And in the end, I think Cooper Akers in the process decided to let Zachary Leopold go, thinking perhaps that he is the quicker driver at this point, and he will be able to get the point off of Long in the overall standings. Well, it's a bit of a gamble there strategically, but a smart call from the team potentially. But then we do take a look back, of course, to how Wojciech Swirydowicz took the lead off of Fleet Smith back on lap 38, and this was in the run and down towards turn number 1, and it was Swirydowicz in the end around the outside of Fleet Smith, who had everything on the table, on the line. But then Wojciech Swirydowicz had the better braking line and had the better traction out the corner. In fact, it was a lock-up there on what was Fleet Smith's right-hand side, not Micah Hendricks, and we incorrectly thought earlier on. Oh, a bit of wheel spin there, and Wojciech Swirydowicz was able to sweep on through. Meanwhile, it was a little bit later on that we had Micah Hendricks make the move, and this was Hendricks making it all the way around the outside, going through Dunlop curve in towards next bend, and Hendricks had to throw all in on this to get it done. But to be fair, great respectful racing between these two, and well, in the end, side by side they went out the hill, and it was the Croc Promotion driver who just managed to squeeze around the outside and got it done up into net. But with that, we head back to your live racing, ladies and gentlemen. As we do come on back for minutes still to go. Still a few more laps of this one. Lap 41 for our leaders of what we expect to be 43 laps. 42's coming up. 2 laps remain very soon. But meanwhile, the fighting's not over. Further down the order, Leopold versus Long for 12th place. Ty Long right now. Either way this goes, he will be extending his Delta Championship lead over third Al Ridgely, who will be the second of your Deltas. And if you can't beat your main rival in the championship, you need to finish the closest possible second place to them. That's what Al Ridgely is doing, albeit separated by 2 Gamma drives. So it will hurt to a degree for Al Ridgely. And well, meanwhile, being a bit of a revelation further back, Jason Lynn, well, he's had a great race and started third. He's going to finish third if he'd hold off Carl Trost and Colton Hopstecker. And Hopstecker's error early on cost him dear, but I think Hopstecker as well, perhaps just struggling a little bit towards the end of this race. He does take a lot of curb out of turn number 11 there. And well, there are the yellow sausages, which will hurt the suspension and also help to grade the tyres a bit more. But Carl Trost right now, attacking, and we're looking at every single line he can for a Panasonic corner, still trying to find a way through. This is not proving easy for him at the moment, with 2 laps left on the board for him, and we'll make the way on down right now. And Carl Trost is going to need to find a bit of magic soon. If he can't, the spark will go out, and Will Jason in will hold on to that third place in Delta right at the finish line. Ray Tew, meanwhile, still working with what is Matthew Mayer. In fact, Mayer has dropped him in recent laps, and Tew now has Mike Dalmida for company. And this will be the fight for 10th place here. And you can see Tyler Long and Zachary Leopold fighting just behind them. So where you go, we've got these building battles, and well, it's really at the main portion of the top 10 where the quiet has arrived. Zachary Leopold looking to the outside there, trying to set up a bit of a better line coming out the corner versus Ty Long. But remember that Elantra can be very quick going up through the gears. Not quite as quick as the Audi Gen 2 car until it gets to around 4th or 5th gear. That's when suddenly the Elantra does start to outpower the Audi a little bit. On those exits, the Honda quick through 2nd gear into 3rd, but then it's 3rd to 4th is where the Elantra really gains. Leopold taking all the curve and plenty more. They bounce their way over the apex of Dunlop curve, and 172 driver here just waiting behind, but no way in at the moment. He'll need Long to make a bit of an error if he wants to be able to make this pass happen. But on to the brakes they go, and as they do, Long just able to get into, well, Long just able to hold it together. Leopold still trying, just to try and outsmart him a little bit here, just poking and prodding, but it's going to come down to one last turn of the circuit, most likely, ladies and gentlemen. They power their way down the start finish straight, and well, they'll go on to their final lap very shortly. We believe this is the last lap. We're just trying to see if we can see a white flag out there. This race will be called pretty much dead on the 1 hour and 15 minutes, and it's a white flag waving. Yes, there is. We are on to lap 43 as we predicted, and well, Zachary Leopold right now following the draft to Ty Long, but can he make it happen? Meanwhile, Ray Tew having to hold off Mike Dalmida, who's trying to find a way past, as we do have Leopold up the inside of Ty Long in towards turn number 1. And well, in the end, that's going to be a smooth move by Zachary Leopold. Had to be a bit aggressive on the brakes. Meanwhile, Jason versus Carl Trost. Who's going to get the upper hand here in the fight for what we third in Delta? It's Lynn on the outside, Trost on the inside. To the left of your picture, that is. Trost goes all in on the brakes. Lynn goes on the switchback. And well, next going to be a drag race up as both tries. They're struggling coming off the corner, trying to get it together. Those tyres absolutely burning hot. And well, Carl Trost does get that move done. Goes as defensive as possible in towards Coca-Cola Bend. And he will take that third place for now, but then comes Colton Hopstecker. Can he get involved? He's going to try to do so, but meanwhile, ladies and gentlemen, coming out of the final corner, the checker flag lies in the distance, and for Wojciech Swirydowicz, he started 3rd, he battled his way into the 2nd, and had to fight his way absolutely furiously with Fleet Smith, but for Wojciech Swirydowicz, it's a win, and it's another step closer to another title for the Beaver D's driver, with Micah Hendricks coming on home in what will be 2nd place. Fleet Smith takes the Gamma win and 3rd on the podium overall, ahead of Matthew Shepka, who returns to the Gamma podium, ahead of Michael Polasek, who rounds on the top 5. Logan McKenzie comes home in 6th place, and then it will be Chris McDonald, who comes home in 7th. A brilliant drive to 3rd place in the Gamma class there for the Crop Promotions driver, ahead of Major Monts of Ice, who comes home 4th in Gamma, 8th overall in a battle-brimming race. Matthew Mayer, he sends off his season with aplomb in the Gen 1 Audi, taking 9th place at a Ray Tew, and it'll be Mike Dalmida in 11th place, and who will it be? Out of Ty Long or Zachary Leopold for 12th, it will be Zachary Leopold, but for Ty Long, 13th place on the road, doesn't compare to the Delta win for him. Head of Cooper Akers, who takes 14th place, and in third, Al Ridgely, run up in the Delta today ahead of Cole Trost, who comes across the line just ahead of Jason Lynn. He will hold on to that third place spot in the Delta class. What a drive from Cole Trost from 8th to 3rd. Very gradual over the distance, making up for his strategic misdemeanors in the previous season and showing he can do it on strategy even when qualified doesn't work out. Colton Hopsecker on his debut. Well, 5th place there, Delta. That's nothing to be upset about. 18th overall. A very impressive drive from him. He's one to watch for the remainder of the season. And Mark Darnell and Zach Hidako completing a top 20 with Hidako just missing out versus Darnell. We've still got a few more drives to finish this race, including Zachary Bowden. Give them all a round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. They all deserve it for the work they've put in today. Bowman comes on home just ahead of John Daniels and a good little scrap for 8th place in Gamma. And then we did see Francois Schinkinian taking 23rd after what was technical difficulties with the car, forced him back into the pit lane, but he was able to get back out there and finish the race under his own steam. Gareth McAllister takes 24th, and then a lap down will be Lewis Gilbert, your last finisher of the race, in 25th place. And well, ladies and gentlemen, what a race. And Wojciech Swirydowicz has already made his way to the pit lane. A result which sees him get much closer to what will be his second Alpha Touring Challenge crown, his second Drivers' Overall Championship crown. Fleet Smith, meanwhile, what a drive from him. 3rd place overall today. Took pole position in qualifying overall in Gamma. Could not quite hold on, but to be fair, and then he drove it as hard as he could, but I think he even knew at the end, as much as he would like to take his second overall win, it will come one day for Fleet Smith. You can be certain of that. But today, there was a much bigger prize at stake, and that was 3rd place overall, and with a huge haul of points to the Gamma Championship as he is heading towards becoming our second ever Gamma champion little by little. Remember, John Lauzon was absent today, but expect Lauzon to be back in a week's time at Adelaide, and Fleet Smith will know this result goes a long way to giving him the edge versus Lauzon. But as the drivers come into the pit lane, Tyler Long as well, having an absolutely solid performance to take the Delta win, with Ferdau originally in that contact with Zachary Leopold at the Dunlop curve earlier on, and really seen himself elbowed out to lead the Delta class and could not quite come back, although they did do repair work to the car and really struggled to get the new set of tyres switched on. Was second in Delta today, but wondering what went wrong. And Carl Trost, well, if it had been a better qualifying points, could he have taken the Delta win? That's always a big what-if question. But we look to the scenic view, and as we do, let's take a look at those race results, subject to any stewards' inquiries, ladies and gentlemen. And a superb race here today for our special endurance round of Season 17. And it did not disappoint in round number 9 of 12 of the Alpha Touring Challenge, Season 17, powered by Syncmesh and Glass and Steel Photography and Design. But in the end, there could only be one driver who sit at the top of Mount Fuji, and it was Wojciech Swirydowicz taking the win for Beaver and D's by 1.5 seconds ahead of Crop Promotions' Micah Hendricks, and Fleet Smith for B4D's completing the overall podium and with the Gamma win. Swirydowicz, therefore, moves closer to his second crown in his campaign, and as for Fleet Smith, that Gamma title is calling him ever closer, as Mike Hendricks, between the two of them, proved to do what he does best, which is to deliver some absolutely incredible driving action. Matthew Shepka, what a drive from him, taking second in Gamma, 4th overall, one of his best performances of the season for Kirby Enthusiasm Autosport, and making sure to stay one step ahead of Michael Polasek. That is no mean feat for Shepka, given the fact Polasek, of course, really seen as the gold standard, or one of the gold standards of driving in the Alpha Touring Challenge and the Flag Motorsport drive today. Imagine Viv having a long, strategic and on-track battle with Logan McKenzie and able to clear the Pennzoil Super Touring driver by the tune of 1.5 seconds at the finish line. But for McKenzie, it was a quiet 6th place ahead of Chris McDonald, who round off the top 3 in Gamma with 7th place there for Crop Promotions, and well, 14 seconds behind the top 6, but to be fair to him, 4.1 seconds ahead, a major monster ice, and we'll credit where it's due for the T0 Racing Summit Trial. Today, his race was all about finishing in 8th place, and he did it in the end with some incredible battling. Matthew Bauer took 9th place there for SRG, and if this is his final round, well, to be fair, he could definitely bow out with his head held high, given the fact he put on a great performance in the Gen 1 Audi, and behind the Canadian driver, Ray to complete the top 10 for Beaver and D's. He may have helped Man move along, but he also made sure to steer clear of Mike Delmeida in the closing stages, with 3 tenths behind for Yellow Flag Motorsport, completing the top 5 in Gamma, and behind the Honda driver was fellow Honda of Zachary Leopold for Pennzoil Super Touring, who finished in 12th place. Then in 13th, Tyler Long taking the Delta win, and well, making sure he opens up his championship lead, but there's still 3 rounds to go, and Tyler Long will not be taking anything for granted given the impressive pace we've seen from so many Delta drives in the last few rounds, including today. He was ahead of the rest of the Deltas with a Gamma of Cooper Akers between the two, because we saw the Pennzoil Super Touring driver split the pair of what was Long and Fuad Ridgely, who was run up in the Delta class for SRG, and unfortunate to be involved in that instant midway through the race that definitely shook him and perhaps stirred him away from the Delta win in the end. Carl Trost taking 3rd place in the Delta class, and what was 16th place overall. He started all the way down in 24th place and 8th in Delta, but he made his way forward on a brilliant piece of strategy and consistent driving for T0 Racer Ascent. And I hope he does look back at today and consider this to be one of his best drives of his AlphaTauri Challenge career so far, because it really has been. May not be his best qualifying performance, but his drive was absolutely sublime. Then we did see Jason in 4th place in Delta, just losing out to Trost into turn 1 on the final laps. The Gator Racing driver holding off Colton Hopsecker, and keep your eyes out for that privateer in the number 92. His debut round, an incredible debut. 3rd in Delta qualifying, 5th on the road in the race. Well, it may not have been the perfect result. You normally want to finish where you started, if not higher, but to be fair to Colton, given he's dove in at the deep end with our special endurance race round, I reckon next time out at Adelaide, he could be one who would be chasing the Delta win. Mark Darnell and Zach Hidako completed your top 20 in their late fight, and then we did see outside the top 20, not to be forgotten about, Zachary Bowman there, taking 21st place ahead of John Daniels, with the two of them for Yellow Flag Motorsport and T0 Racers enjoying their own battle outside the top 20. Franz Washing, unfortunately, having to tow to the pit lane due to a technical issue with the car, but then the Sia driver making his way back out and being the last lead lap finisher. Ahead of Gareth McAllister, who stalled at the start, and in the end, it all fell apart for the Mountain Motorsport driver before it really got going, but he was ahead of Lewis Gilbert for Gator Racing, and we did have the non-starters classified for John Agudello, also there for Taylor Bookout and Jeremy Barber. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, that completes our rundown of your provisional results, subject to any stewards' inquiries, and that completes our time here for round number 9 of Season 17 at the Fuji International Speedway. An incredible round, a brilliant special round for the season, indeed. Always our admins cooking up some brilliant special rounds, and this has been no exception. The racing was lively from start to finish, but with that, unfortunately, we must now make sure we get some rest here and get ready for our trip to Australia for the final 3 rounds of the season. And it does mean it is time for us to wrap up. Thank you very much for watching, and if you have enjoyed today's show, and perhaps you're sat there right now clamouring to know more about the AlphaTauri Challenge and how you can get on the grid for this series, whether it be to make a brief debut later on this season, alternatively to join for Season 18, of course there will be an 18th season, well, we definitely recommend you go to our official website, and that's at alphataurinchallenge.com, and as it appears on the screen, you could not find a more complete compendium information when it comes to the AlphaTauri Challenge. Whether you want to know the full history, the Hall of Fame, how it all started, how it's all going, the rules, the regulations, are how you can get on the grid, well, it's all on this website. And if you want one of the friendliest communities to join as well, make sure to follow the links in our website to join the AlphaTauri Challenge Discord. Absolutely packed full of like-minded individuals. Indeed, whether you're looking to talk about touring cars, real-life racing, or anything, and there's somebody there to chat to, no doubt about it. You won't find a more friendly racing community, I can promise you that. And all that information and how to join the official Discord and community, all available on alphataurinchallenge.com, the official website. But with that, we also do need to say a big thank you to our series partners, who do include Syncmesh. Now, born out of the pursuit of one-man search better gear for sim racing, Syncmesh is the company which provides purpose-built gear for sim racing, ranging from gloves through to full line of performance wear. With an obsessive attention to detail in their gear, which aligns with your attention to detail in nailing lap after lap of the simulator, you could not ask for better gear to make your racing experience better. And if you'd like to know more, do head to sync-mesh.com today. We'd also like to give a big thank you to Glass and Steel Photography and Design, because the AlphaTauri Challenge's official photographer, Jason Lynn, who you've seen racing today, is a highly talented and approachable individual who provides both photography and livery design services for the iRacing simulator platform as part of Glass and Steel Photography and Design. But do not just take our word for it, you've seen plenty of his liveries on the grid today, and also with 5-star reviews for his clientele, citing him as easy to work with, detail-orientated, and a very fast responder. If you're looking for pixel-precise photography or a livery design to dominate the competition, then why not head to his website at glassnsteel1.wordpress.com today. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, that's all we've got time for today, and we head to Australia. Next time out, in a week's time, on Monday, the 29th of June, 2026, our drivers will be going racing around the Adelaide Street Circuit, once home to the Australian Grand Prix, and nowadays home to Australian supercars, the wonderful V8 machines. But we're going to be halving the number of cylinders down to 4 in our 2-litre 4-cylinder machines, as it'll be the home of touring car next time out, and we'll bring you all the racing action as if it were live from our endurance race round for round number 10 on Tuesday, the 30th of June. But until then, what we've seen today is that Wojciech Swirydowicz seems to be stepping just a bit closer to another crown, albeit he's being kept honest every step of the way. In the Gamma class, meanwhile, Fleet Swift taking an incredible 3rd place and showing he's definitely the one to beat in Gamma this season, but can anybody stop him, include Jan Lauzon, who will return next time out most likely. And as for the Delta class, Tai Long is just stretching out his lead little by little, but for Ridley, if he can't win, he's always one step behind. How will it all continue at Adelaide? We'll tune in next time to find out. But until then, ladies and gentlemen, we have been the Alpha Touring Challenge. I've been your host and commentator, Paul Walsh. You've been tuned to a Paul's production. And until next time, from all of us here, make sure to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, and most importantly, as always, ladies and gentlemen, remember to stay on track. Good night.